All right, bro. Here we go. You ready?
Here we are.
Here we are. I teased this thing. I have called people that have called me to reach out for questions, for answers. And I haven't had good answers for them on this one particular topic until your idea came up, until you were revealed, until you got the revelation necessary to go forward. And I'm super excited to jump into that, but before we do, I feel like we probably got to set the table here, right?
Yes, definitely.
So what we're going to talk about tonight has been born out, quite frankly, in my opinion, of just not knowing quite what to do. Because it feels like all the tools have been there, but we didn't know quite how to put them all together.
Right.
Now, we need to discuss the impetus for this, right? And look, if you're listening to this podcast, it's not because you think things are rosy and great inside the church, right? If you're an active LDS member, you didn't get here by accident, right? Chances are you bumped into a lot of anti-Mormon content, and now you're at a place of choosing. And so we're going to talk about what's going on behind the scenes first that prompted this, the problems, and then I think that there's going to be a very unique solution as we wrap this up. So, Justin, take her away, bud.
All right. Well, I want to start by talking about a docu-series that just came out,
Okay.
and it's called Inconvenient Faith. An
Okay.
Inconvenient Faith. Oh, I don't know if anybody's seen this yet.
Al Gore.
Yeah, Al Gore. I saw this just the other day, and I was going through it, and it just reconfirmed that I feel like we need some response. There needs to be
Right.
some answers to this kind of thing that's going on in the church. And this is the perfect springboard, I think, to talk about some of these topics.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So, did you have a chance to see the docuseries?
I saw parts of it, but I didn't get to watch the whole thing just because, quite frankly, my phone rings, just without mercy for 12, 15 hours a day. So I
Okay.
wish I did, but I'm going to have you scoot just a little close here so we make sure that we're getting all the mics picked up good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. I just got some summary here to this docuseries that I just
Okay.
want to go over. So, there's an intro video, and one of the main points here is that things are kind of not going well.
No.
No, I'm serious.
I had no idea.
It's a very different perspective, though. This is coming from a different end of the political spectrum.
Okay.
This is things are not going well in the church because it's
Okay.
not embracing modern values.
Gotcha.
And they're putting forth an argument that the church isn't going to survive in a modern world if it doesn't start adopting some of these modern values and understandings of things.
Well, they're kind of not wrong, right? Like, if the church wants to fit in today's society, it doesn't have a choice. It's got to do that. It's got if they're not going to follow the Savior's commandment or admonition to be that light on the hill, and all they want to do is blend in with the rest of society, they have no other choices but to change up things towards the left-hand side of the spectrum, right?
Right. And that's where this I find most concerning because it starts off with basically this idea that Mormon theology and history is unsalvageable.
Mm,
And so what we really need to do is reinvent Mormonism, not be reconverted to it, but reinvent
right.
it.
That's interesting you should say that because, and I want to say this, I liked this book. I really did
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. But Richard Bushman's book, Rough Stone Rolling,
Right.
there were times that I felt like you got an honest peek at Joseph Smith. But then there were other times that I feel like Bushman went off the rails, right?
Mhm.
And what's interesting to note about Rough Stone Rolling is that author, Richard Bushman, was in a fireside. Okay. And this was like a closed off group for a fireside, right?
Okay.
This to me looked like if I was just to gauge it, and this is just my guess, it was in a very nice home with a lot of people that looked like they had a lot of jack, a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And he said something that scared me to death, which is we're going to have to not reinvent, but retell our origin story to something that's more digestible for modern consumption. And I'm like, that's a problem.
Right.
I mean, look, what is this? This is the restoration, right? So let's talk about cars for a second, right? If you're restoring a 1969 Mustang, man, you're putting that original V6 in there. You're making sure that that drop top is tight and right, that the nice door flares are all there, like cherry, perfect, right?
Right.
If you take the body of a 1969 Mustang and you drop in a Prius, that's not a restoration, right?
No.
That is something different. And I think what Bushman is saying in this instance, and I think it goes along with these videos, is that we have to retell our history and package it for modern consumption.
Right.
And we see this, right? We see it in the little things. And if you know what to look for, it gets very obvious, right? It used to be when you and I were in the church, late 90s, mid 90s, what was the narrative? Joseph took plates and translated them.
Right.
Well, it's been tweaked a little bit. Now it's Joseph received the Book of Mormon by revelation.
Right.
That's different than translate, right?
Yeah.
That almost goes to the community of Christ inspired fiction sort of a thing.
Well, that's exactly where the Stocky series goes. The first
Right.
thing it does is it goes straight to the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
And it presents this idea that well, it points out that the truthfulness of the LDS Church claims is dependent on the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon.
Gotcha.
But then it goes on to say that, well, the Book of Mormon's clearly not historical,
Mm.
but it's inspiring and powerful. It changes people's lives for the better, even if it is a work of fiction. And that's the starting premise of the Stocky series, is that this can be a good thing, even if it's not true. This can still be a good thing.
See, and that's where I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I've been to a couple Jimmy Buffett concerts, and those make me feel real good. But I'm not ready to say that's the origin story of Mormonism, right? Like,
Right.
just because it feels good doesn't mean it's true, right? And just because we don't understand something doesn't mean it's not true. And we have to parse this out if we're going to continue. But
Right. Well, it's interesting to note too that a lot of the people in the Stocky series are, like John DeLend and stuff. These are guys that are, well, what we would call anti-Mormon,
no.
and yet they want to hold on to the recognition of well, no, we're Mormon too. This is Mormon too. We're going to redefine what it means to be Mormon. And the
Right.
first step is the Book of Mormon. And they want you to accept that this is not a historical record. This is not a true story of ancient Americans. This is a beautiful piece of fiction that is wonderful and helps people to grow and come to Christ and does good things for their lives. And you can reject basically the doctrine of it though, because it was made up. So it's the inception point for what they're really trying to accomplish here, which is, well, we'll get into that, right?
Okay.
So they start with the Book of Mormon, and they set that stage, and then they move into LGBTQ-ish, LGBTQI plus whatever, right?
I'm shocked.
That's their next point that they just go straight to, and basically they present some ideas that first of all, the church is harmful to
Mhm.
LGBTQ people.
Yep. We've heard that for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. And I want to be careful how I say this. Any loss of life, especially by suicide, is tragic.
Absolutely.
I don't care what your sexual orientation is, that's tragic. But that side of the argument will say, well, it's the church's fault. When in all actuality, if you look at suicidal ideation and action, it's not any worse or higher in a Mormon sphere as opposed to even just a normal family, right?
Yeah.
That's because if you have those feelings, you are really struggling and you're presented with two options. And so I've never bought in that the LDS church, look, obviously I have my issues with the LDS church, but they're not on the hook for that.
They're not on the hook for that, no. And there's something to be recognized that are these people struggling with these things are our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
The question is are we going to affirm them
Right.
in these problems, or are we going to really try to reach out and help and minister to them?
100%.
There was a time when there was a website, I think it was Mormons and Gays,
Yes.
and the LDS Church was putting on a very strong
Yep.
what do you call that, campaign
Yeah.
to try to reach out and say, hey, we want to understand what you're going through, and that you can be going through this and you can still be a member of this faith. And actually,
Right.
that is absolutely true. But the narrative has shifted from these are things that you're struggling with, and you're struggling with these things in your relationship with God, to an idea that these are things that, because the church is speaking out against, it's causing the problems. It's like an alcoholic
Right.
problem. My father was an alcoholic, and he struggles with these things, and it doesn't help him to say that, hey, that's okay.
No.
Now, I have a lot of compassion and love for my father, but it doesn't help him to say that it's okay to hide from these things. The things that are damaging spiritually, physically, and they lead to problems. It is a natural, see, ultimately, truth is truth. I don't believe that God gives us commandments because God's some sort of an arbitrary dictator sitting up there wanting us to obey his every whim. I believe that the commandments that we're given are for our own benefit. These things, he doesn't give us commandments because he wants to damn us if we disobey. He's giving us these commandments because there's these underlying truths. And you're not going to find the purpose and the
Mhm.
happiness and the joy that God has prepared for us when we live in delusions.
Absolutely. You know, I've used this metaphor before, which is if you go to the doctor and you got cancer, what do you want the doctor to do? You want the doctor to first be like, you know, test results came back and damn, Justin's got cancer.
Right.
But I love Justin and I don't want to see Justin suffer. So you know what? I'm just not going to tell him he has cancer. Or do you want the doctor who's going to sit you down and be like, Justin, I'm not going to lie to you. You got cancer and it's bad. But I think we can save your life. But you're going to have to go through some stuff to get there. Well, I
Right.
think all of us would say, well, give me the doctor that's going to shoot me straight, right? Because I want to live. Okay. With some of our gay brothers and sisters who are struggling with this, it does them no good for us to ignore that and say, well, no, you're fine just the way you are, right?
Right.
And here's the other thing. Justin, did you ever get the message in in the gospel that you're okay just the way you are?
Never.
No, me neither. You know what the gospel does for me? You got to reach higher. You got to
Yeah.
work harder. You got to put away the natural man, right? So we're not really in that much different of a boat, right?
No,
Other
I've got
than,
my own struggles.
right.
I have to fight with them daily.
Yes. Yes.
Daily. It's a daily struggle to try to identify what I need to be doing to be in alignment with God.
Absolutely.
And whether it's temptations towards homosexuality or anything else, we all face the same struggles.
Right.
They're different struggles, but we all struggle.
Yes.
None of this, it comes easy to, and it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, this is an easy fit.
No.
We make sacrifices and we trust in God. And I have found in my own life, I have found healing and transformation through the atonement. That's the message of the gospel, is
Right.
that we all fell short. We all came down here with these great expectations and we all fell short. We didn't live up to those expectations. And the
100%.
beauty of the gospel is that through the atonement, through the love of our Savior, that we can find that comfort and solace,
Absolutely.
that God hasn't forsaken us. I don't believe he has. I don't believe he's forsaken anybody on this
No.
earth. But if we really want to get things in order, we have to listen to what God has to say on these issues.
100%.
And when it comes to these LGBTQI plus whatever issues, these are things that are ultimately detrimental to our souls.
Yes.
And whitewashing it and making it as something that, well, you're just different and these are natural, this is okay. I don't understand the whole thing, to be honest. But
No.
I've got friends that have struggled with this. And the best outcome has come from those who have, through the atonement, found transformation. And I
100%.
absolutely believe that that is possible. I have seen it in my own life with friends that have struggled with these things, and I found it in my own life with the things that I struggle with. The beauty of the gospel and the atonement is that we can find healing.
Yes.
And it seems like that message isn't as prominent anymore in the
No.
LDS church. In fact, right now, there's a guy, Jacob Hansen, has been taking a lot of flack over his stance and reaffirming the doctrines that are in the family proclamation. And I think that's a very valid place to be.
100%.
And I don't think that we should have to feel ashamed of our convictions that God knows what's best for us.
Absolutely.
But I feel like that's kind of the message of this docu series. It's kind of saying that this is a mistake. This is something that's wrong. And it's okay though, because the church is changing. It's progressing. It's progressing on these issues. And so, one of the things that really surprised me was, I think it was John DeLynn in this docuseries describes that the family proclamation doesn't say anything explicitly forbidding homosexuality. It doesn't, it says that gender is eternal. Well, he's saying the trans people believe that too. They just got the wrong bodies.
But you create a different God at that point, right?
It's a
The,
different truth, right?
well, the gospel according to Mormonism was God doesn't change, right? And God doesn't make mistakes,
Right.
right? And so by saying that you're born in the wrong body, you're doing the exact opposite of what Joseph Smith did. Okay. Joseph Smith took humans and raised their intellect and their ideas up to God, right? That's what he was trying to get done. Well, what John DeLynn says is that no, we're just going to drag God down.
Right.
I would rather ascend than have a God that is changing, is, can change his mind on a whim. That's not a God I wish to follow because I don't know how to get back to him at that point because he changes so frequently.
Right.
And that's a
Well,
problem,
it is a problem, and it's a problem that they bring up themselves. They point out how the LDS Church, for a while, said children can't be baptized
right?
if their parents are homosexual. Although it's not, I mean, I don't, I'm not quite sure how that works, but um, but basically, they're saying that the church made a mistake with that, and I'll be honest, I do think that's a mistake. I don't think it's fair to hold children to a different standard just because of who their parents are.
Right.
This is something that actually, it's funny because when the church first introduced that in 2015, I remember thinking, Oh, okay, that's a lot like fundamentalists. That's been the standard policy for us fundamentalists for a long time.
Yep.
As a fundamentalist, if many of my children want to get baptized in the LDS Church, they need permission from
Yep.
the top authorities. They've got to disavow their parents' beliefs in the things that Brigham Young had taught, the things that Joseph Smith had taught, in order for them to be able to be brought back into the fold.
I remember when that came out. So I was actually an elders quorum when that first hit. I was an elders quorum president, excuse me. And here's what I remember from that. As I thought about it, and it took me a minute because it didn't sit right with me. Again, this is one place I'm going to back up the church, but they've already went away from it, so whatever.
Right.
Right, I'm used to that by now, right? But in some ways, in my opinion, it was merciful. And let me explain why.
Okay.
Because if you're now a 12-year-old kid, the church isn't saying you can't come to church. They're just saying we're not going to baptize you until you're an adult.
Right.
And why is that? Well, now the church doesn't put you in a weird place where you have to disavow your parents' lifestyle.
Right.
And so I saw it more as an act of mercy, right? That we're going to allow kids the opportunity to grow up and figure this out without putting them in this weird place of who do you love more, the church or the gospel? Now, it's not that simple to say who do you love more, but from a 12-year-old's mind, that's what it is. And I felt like by the church saying, we're going to make you wait till you're 18, I honestly felt like, well, at least they're not trying to turn kids against their parents, no matter what their parents are doing.
True. True.
And so I kind of, I was like you, it didn't sit right with me, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that might be kind of a tender mercy.
Right. But the church changed their perspective. They
Yeah.
changed their mind on that.
In like, I don't know, 6 minutes. Like it wasn't
Yeah,
long.
it
It
wasn't
was
very
like
long.
6 months, a year. And it was like, oh yeah. But here's the interesting thing. I heard Russell M. Nelson say this personally. At that time, he was the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, Russell M. Nelson. But they were having a stake or a regional leadership meeting, right? So all the elders, quorum presidents went, all the bishoprics, that sort of thing. He called it a revelation,
Yeah,
right? He said what they had
he
got was
did.
a revelation. So if what you're saying is a revelation, you impose this policy through revelation, then you take it away from revelation like a year and a half later. Again, that's not a God I want to serve. That is
Right.
a God that is fickle.
It creates mistrust.
Absolutely.
And this docuseries is grabbing onto that idea
Yep.
that will look at the changes. So their second video is also LGBTQ issues. But the third one they get into is blacks in the priesthood. And we've
hmm
we've had this discussion. I've been on this podcast
Yep.
debating Jacob Vidrine on this issue. I still stand by my stance on that. I think that the priesthood ban was a mistake,
Right.
right? But that was a policy. The doctrines related to that were not coming from even Brigham Young. The doctrines associated with that, this idea that
Fence sitters.
fence sitters, all that these are coming from individual members having their own inspiration on it,
Right.
and it's based off of people proponents of the priesthood ban sharing stuff that they claim Joseph Smith had taught, which I don't believe is accurate,
Right.
right? So Brigham Young himself wasn't really advocating one way or the other on this issue. He had his stance on this and he was wrong,
Right.
but he didn't present it as a revelation. As I
Right.
point out in the debate, he presents this as if you've never heard this before, you're hearing it from me. He's taken ownership and responsibility of
Yep.
that policy decision based on the information that he had and his own life experience. And I think that was a mistake. But it wasn't until the manifesto that this paradigm that the church was infallible
Right.
really comes into play.
Yep.
Prior to that, and this is something that just blows my mind because Joseph Smith himself published Revelations of God chastising him for screwing up. It is all over Doctrine and Covenants.
Yeah, if you want to be a cult leader, that's probably not the direction you want to take it. Getting your rear end handed to you over and over in scripture, right?
Right.
Like people forget that. That's a huge thing for me when I look at the Doctrine and Covenants, is that, and pardon the expression, Joseph gets his butt handed to him a lot
Yeah.
throughout that book of scripture. And that if you're looking to be infallible, that's not something you want to write down.
Right. It's not something that Joseph Smith claimed. It's not something that Brigham Young claimed.
Mm-mm.
This doesn't show up until the manifesto.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now it's, well, the church leaders can't lead you astray. And
Right.
that becomes a standard doctrine throughout the church. But that's a culture and an idea that is not native to the Restoration.
Right.
It's not native to Mormonism. It's something that gets injected in, right? And so these guys are capitalizing on that. They're capitalizing the fact that they're using the priesthood issue as a model to show that, hey, look, the church will change.
Right.
The church is progressing. It's in a process of growing. And on that one, maybe it really was. But it's only doing that because of it set itself up with the manifesto of claiming this prophetic infallibility.
Right.
And so they're latching on to that as an excuse for what we're seeing with LGBTQ issue, high plus issues.
Gotcha.
And these are now the excuses for why we can expect the church to change on these issues. We can expect the church to open its doors to the members' interests and demands. And when things are wrong, absolutely, I believe that there is a room for that kind of correction. And I think that we as fundamentalists have looked at that issue specifically, right? And we've tried to address it.
Yep.
But I don't think that just because Brigham was wrong on that, we throw out everything that Brigham taught.
No.
We don't throw out everything Joseph Smith taught. And their next video goes into polygamy. And this one was, from a fundamentalist perspective, the hardest to watch.
Oh, you mean they weren't for it?
No.
Oh, I was shocked.
Apparently it's abusive. This is a horrible, horrible thing that Joseph Smith had done.
Abusive.
And it's proof that Joseph Smith as a man was immoral.
Oh. Okay.
Or at the very least, it was a mistake how it got implemented. They put forth this, this sealing men as well, and there's an aspect to that, right? Of this family dynasty.
Sure.
But I don't believe that it was only intended to be some sort of a spiritual making us all brothers and sisters.
No.
That was an aspect of it, but it's also a true principle.
Yep.
And so they present Joseph Smith again as, we should accept him because he did good things, but he was flawed, and we get to pick and choose what his mistakes were.
Mm.
And so polygamy is proof, basically, that Joseph Smith got stuff wrong, that it stayed in the church and it was wrong, and it got corrected. So again, it's this deconstruction and this reinvention of Mormonism that they're kind of pushing and presenting here. They do a video on the church being a high demand religion.
Right.
That's kind of, woke speak.
Yeah, that whole high demand religion thing. It's interesting, right? Because they say it like it's a bad thing.
Right.
I'm like, look, if the gospel does what the gospel says it will do, it better be high demand.
Right.
I don't want anyone attaining to that level, to godhood, who's just going to church on Sunday and mailing it in the rest of the week. I don't think God wants that either. So rather than argue with them, I agree. It is a high demand religion.
Well, I think it's a high demand religion because as flawed human beings, right?
Yes.
We all need a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we only get that work done by recognizing God's revelations and conforming our lives
100%.
to God. And the systems, the organization, the programs of the church, I actually have a lot of respect for these things. These things have done a great job at bringing, elevating us
Yeah.
to a higher standard and helping us deal with our flaws and our weaknesses, sticking those things in our
100.
face and giving us opportunities to learn and grow.
100%.
So it is a high demand religion. And they kind of recognize that, but with this idea that we can change the things we don't like.
Cafeteria Mormonism.
So yeah, you have John DeLynn on there talking about how he does, even now that he's out of the church, he's talking about how he still keeps the word of wisdom.
Okay.
And okay, yeah, because sacrifice is a good thing. And my perspective on that is sacrifice is a good thing if it's a sacrifice that has been asked of the Lord.
Right.
When we just pick and choose what we're willing to sacrifice, we're limiting ourselves. We're limiting our potential growth. We're limiting the healing that we can receive through the atonement when we're the ones setting that standard.
Absolutely. There was a reason the Lord said that when you sacrificed an animal, it had to be the best, right? Without blemish. It wasn't only because it was a symbolism of Christ, although that is massively important. Its real importance, or I shouldn't say its real importance, one of the other things that made it important is that's the animal that fetched the most money at market.
Right.
You're going to feel that.
Yeah, you're going to feel that. But that was something that the Lord was asking of the
Yeah,
children of Israel at that time.
100%.
And it wasn't up to them to choose what sacrifices they were willing to make and which ones they weren't. That
Right.
things got out of hand with some of the Pharisaical stuff, and Christ had to clarify some of that. But nonetheless, we can't expect to really achieve our true potentials in this life if we're not willing to accept God's truth. If we're going to
100%.
live our truth, we're limiting our potential.
Yep.
And ultimately, God's potential is for us to have joy.
Yeah.
And we're not going to find joy in believing a Book of Mormon that is fictional, but still an inspiring book. We're not going to find joy in living according to the values and standards of the world when it
Right.
comes to LGBTQ issues. We're not going to find the joy that God would have for us if we reject what God has told us about the standard. What is the requirement for entering into the highest degree of exaltation? It's right there in section 132. And if we're not willing to do the works of Abraham, then how do we expect to receive the blessings that Abraham received?
100%.
So their last section is on personal revelation. And basically it is this idea that the church is wrong. It's kind of backwards, has these backwards conservative values. They present this idea that the leadership isn't united on this issue.
They're not wrong.
I don't know. I can't say, right? I don't meet with these men and talk with them. But the messaging is very inconsistent.
I know for a fact they're not united.
Right. And therefore, because they're not united, the ultimate message of the docuseries is, you know what? Just sort of believe whatever you want
Right.
and stick around and make that the new norm. So from a
They showed you the playbook.
they show you the playbook. From a philosophical perspective, this is what you call modern progressivism. And it's kind of this idea that as we learn more, as cultures change, that we're getting better and better and better and better. That if you look at technology, it's getting better and better and better. Mankind is getting better and better. We're evolving. We're learning and we're
Mm,
evolving. And it kind of relegates truth to this sort of subjective position
right.
where whatever the modern standards are, those must be correct. And you have what's his name, Harry Reid in the series before he died. I mean, I guess this has been long in the making.
6 years, if I remember correctly.
But you have Harry Reid on here, and he's talking about how wonderful it is that things keep getting better and better and better in the church as it becomes more and more progressive, as it becomes more and more united with the world, that the church is getting carried and lifted up.
You know,
Now,
can I interject something here real quick? You know who Dietrich Bonhoeffer is, right?
Bonhoeffer, no.
So Bonhoeffer was a pastor during the takeover of the Nazis in Germany. He was the guy who said, not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. Dies in a concentration camp because
Right.
he refuses to go over the cliff with the rest of Germany. But throughout his book, he makes a couple of points that are really valid. And I read it, and then I read a few other things. And what I came to is that religion, if you look at society as a body, as a person, religion is Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, right? He's telling you, don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. Bad things happen when you do that. Well, when religion gets co opted by society at large, who gets to critique the society? There is massive danger when the church does. And when I say the church, I'm not talking just about the LDS church, I'm talking about every denomination because they're all doing it to one level or another, right? This thing of playing to society. They're no longer saying things like you need to improve, you need to grow closer to Christ, you need to abandon your sin. They're saying, you know what? Despite your sin, Jesus still loves you. And that's true. That's true.
There's some truth.
But that's not what Jesus wants for you, right? Jesus didn't tell the woman taken in adultery, you know, it's okay. I'm a feminist too. And I get what you're doing. No, what does he tell her? Your sins are forgiven. Go thy way and sin no more. So it's not like Jesus is saying, it's okay if you sin. I'm happy when you sin. It's okay.
Right.
What he's saying is there's a better way. And he's trying to illuminate that. Taking it back to this idea of the church syncing up with society, you're not doing your job, right? If you're trying to be a watchman on the tower and say danger approaches, you will fall asleep on that job if you try to join that enemy that's coming to raid your gates.
Right. So, and for me personally, so technological advancements are amazing.
Yeah.
And I work in tech, but there's a price.
Yes.
There is such a price. And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast. There was a time when I had the opportunity to work a old school printing press that was set up in Provo, Utah, where they had typeset a page from the Book of Mormon, and it was like the 4th of July, or it was what they call Pioneer Day. I
Right.
can't remember exactly what it was, but they were open. The museum was open, and they were looking for volunteers. And I had volunteered. And so I'm running this press for the Book of Mormon.
Nice.
And it was exhausting work.
I bet.
It was very labor intensive. And it really brought to mind the sacrifices that had to be made to get that original Book of Mormon printed. The sacrifices people had to make to be able to buy a copy of the Book of Mormon. I mean, we have printing presses back then, but it was still no small thing to buy a book.
Yeah, no, it was huge.
These were serious investments. There's a lot of time and labor that goes into that. And I think that with that sacrifice comes an appreciation.
Yep.
And I look at today and I can pull up the Book of Mormon on my phone. I can pull up, I mean, you go to Gutenberg.org, I believe.
Yep.
There are fantastic, I mean, the greatest books in the history of civilization are there, available. The people in the 1700s, 1800s would have died for access,
Absolutely.
something like that. And today we have all this because of technology, but it loses some of its meaning
Yeah.
because there's no sacrifice involved. It's just available for free.
That's so true. Thomas Paine said something very similar to that, which was heaven knows best how to affix a price to her goods, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes I think we've got it a little too easy when it comes to the gospel, right?
Right.
Look, I don't want the days of 1830 whatever Missouri to come back, right? But I do think we should struggle for our faith from time to time. I think Paul's clear on that when he says, you know, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling before the Lord, right? We need to struggle.
Yeah. We're not promised an easy ride.
No, no.
And so technology is getting better, but are things getting better? I I look at the world today and I think it's a disaster.
Yeah,
We look at marriage rates, even just fertility rates. We talked about that last time a little bit.
right.
Western civilization is starting to fall apart right now.
100%.
It's kind of gone off the rails.
Yep.
And like you were saying, one of those checks and balances to protect us is religion. It's God's word saying these are the standards, this is the truth. And when, as a society, we conform to those truths, we do grow, we do progress. I'm not anti progressive. I believe in the principle of progression, but I don't believe this is how we get there.
Right.
This is actually something more along the lines of what I would call rules for radicals. If you ever,
Solowinski. Yep.
yeah,
You remember who he dedicated the book to?
who do you dedicate to?
Lucifer, the first radical who at least won his own kingdom. Per Solowinski, rules for radicals. Yeah.
Right. But I want to go over some of these points from Rules from Radicals because this is the game plan of this docu-series.
Okay.
Yeah. So first, one of his main points, expertise,
Hmm.
right? We have all of these experts in this docu-series telling us what is what.
Right.
These people aren't just your run-of-the-mill average
Mm-mm.
Joes. No, these are people who are considered experts in
Patrick
these areas.
Patrick Mason, who, if I'm not mistaken, you know what, let me just double check that before I go here. But I think he is a current church historian. Let me just double check. Patrick Q. Mason is an American historian specializing in the Latter-day Saint movement. Since 2019, he has held the Leonard J. Arrington Chair of Mormon History and Culture at Utah State University. So maybe he doesn't work for the church,
Okay.
but he's holding the same seat Arrington held, right? Which means that anything he says is going to carry a gravitas that not many other people enjoy within Mormondom.
Right. And the experts, you have these PhDs, you have all the, PhD in feminism, you have these people that are basically professionals
Yes.
explaining, oh, the damage that the church's stance on LGBTQ issues, it's hurting people. This is destroying lives according to them. But these are the experts. They
Right.
bring in the experts to provide authority, or at
Yep.
least a perceived authority.
100%.
You also have this idea of power and perception, and that the rules for radical teaches you that you need to convince your opponents that you have power.
Right.
Well, within the LDS church, a lot of these people do hold a lot of power.
Yep.
And they're saying this is how it is. They've got their experts saying this is how it is. And they're expecting the church to conform to these expert opinions, because not because they have the word of God on their side, but because they have convinced people. They've
Right.
convinced the membership. Because they brought in their experts. They're telling us this is where things are really at. This is where things have to go, or the religion's going to get lost.
100%.
You have this idea of pointing out and attacking hypocrisy and inconsistencies. There's some truth to that. But in reality, see, this is a cultural issue, I think, in the LDS Church. I was going to get into this a little bit more later, but there's kind of this idea that we've if you're a good member of the church, you've never screwed up. You've never made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I experienced this a lot. When I was living in Utah, everybody in the church is wearing kind of a mask.
Right.
And they're not struggling with anything. They never made it, they've never slipped up. And that's not true. That's not what any of us are really experiencing. And we kind of in that culture, you have this feeling like, well, gee, if I'm struggling with something, nobody else seems to be.
It's just me.
It's just me. So I better just kind of put on a mask.
Yep.
The problem with that is it's really easy to attack that kind of hypocrisy and dishonesty.
100%.
I try to be honest with my children. I'm not a perfect parent. And when I make mistakes as a parent, I talk to my kids about it and I let them know that wasn't that wasn't ideal. That was not me being my best self.
Right.
Because I don't want my children to grow up with this expectation that I'm some sort of a perfect father, because I'm not. And if they have this idea that I'm this perfect father, at some point when they're teenagers, they're going to see right through that.
Sure.
And that suddenly becomes an excuse to reject everything that I have to offer,
Yep.
including my testimony of the gospel, including my testimony of the restoration. And I don't want that. I want my children to understand that I'm a working through this just like everybody else, just like they will be.
Yeah. It's important, right? Because all of us, no matter who we are, and even if your parent says it, you do look at your parents like they got their crap together, right? And it's only once you become an adult and you start doing the things that they did that you go, oh,
Oh,
they don't, yeah, okay. But it does make you have more compassion for your parents, right?
yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it. I was a little
Not so
bonehead.
easy, is it?
Yeah, I was a little bonehead, and yeah, I get it. I tested mom and dad, and things went south, right? So no, it works both ways, I think, on that.
Yeah. But it's a point of attack. Hypocrisy is a point of attack. I think that's why Christ in his own ministry calls it out so harshly.
Right?
It's not the sinners that he's condemning. It's those who wear a mask of perfection and
The hypocrites.
the hypocrites.
Yep.
And this is a legitimate issue in the LDS Church when you have a doctrine that your leaders are infallible.
Right.
You can't get around that.
No.
So you have that, you have ridicule,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what they do in the docuseries. They ridicule Joseph Smith for his plural marriage. They're ridiculing Brigham Young over getting, on his opinion on this priesthood ban, and they're using that to basically reject the truths that might be behind those things,
Right.
right? And when you ridicule it, you're attacking the just not just the person, but basically you're attacking the authority.
If you ridicule something, it automatically takes a place of something that's not too serious.
Right. So in the temple, right, we make a part of the explanation of the law of the gospel includes this thing about not evil speaking of the Lord's anointed.
Right.
I don't think that means you can't disagree.
Right.
But what it's warning against is an attitude of ridicule.
Yes.
Not just, hey, I disagree, but no, I need to mock you and tear you down.
100%.
And, focusing at local, gradual change. I'll be honest, I see this docuseries as a very effective implementation of Rules for Radicals. And it seems to be working in the LDS Church. I'm starting to see a change in culture. And ultimately, there is this idea in Mormonism that so why do revelations from God need to be ratified by the church? Is it because the church is going to determine the truthfulness of it?
No, it's just an opportunity for the church to either accept or reject it.
Right. And apparently, God's okay letting the church reject. If the body of the church is choosing to reject God's truth, God's not going to force it upon them.
Right. Right. He might be fine with letting us choose that, but he's also fine with us reaping the benefits of that decision.
Right. That doesn't mean there's not consequences.
Right.
I absolutely believe it's possible for the church to reject the fullness of the gospel.
Oh, did they do? I didn't realize. Oh, okay.
Right.
You mean like a revelation that may have been had in, I don't know, 1886?
Right.
Okay, just check.
I mean, if you believe that John Taylor was actually a prophet,
Yeah,
if you believe that he received revelations from God like I do, then how do you explain where the church is today? Because
it
I still believe that the LDS church is God's church.
sure. Me too.
But I look at the body of believers and I look at the things that they're believing and the standards that they want to uphold, and I'm seeing a shift.
You know, this is interesting. I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he had said, "How can you still believe it's the Lord's church when it's gone so far astray?" And I said, "Say you have a kid. That kid goes astray. Do you ever stop claiming him?"
Right.
No, you continue to work with him, right? And I do think the Lord is still working with the LDS church, but not in the way people might think, right? I
Right.
think he's working with them in terms of, I'm going to give you what you want, and I'm going to determine what you want by your actions, right? You
Yeah.
want to reject revelation? Okay, there is a place for that, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of how I view the LDS church is a very wayward child of God.
Right. And because there is this principle where God gives the church agency,
Yep.
I think that what we're seeing starting to happen right now is a continuation of what happened back
Mm,
in John Taylor's day.
yeah.
We have this first fundamentalist movement start up because you have a body of believers, members of the church, that are convicted in the revelations.
Yes.
They have a testimony of the doctrines, and they're not willing to give them up, even if the church as a body rejects them.
Right.
And what we found in that first wave of fundamentalism is we found the church went to war
Yep.
against those who held on to the standards of truth. And I think that can happen again. I
I
think we're starting to see it.
I was going to say I think we're there,
I think we're
right?
there.
I think we're on the if the event is like a day, we're at the very beginning of daybreak,
Yeah,
right? And it will get more pronounced as time goes along. But make no mistake, the seasons have changed. It's here, right?
right,
And look, I just got off a podcast last week talking about Taylor Smith about some of the uglier things that have happened, right?
right.
I we have now the communications director. I don't know if he's the director. Don't quote me on that. but he's one of the communications guys, at least for the LDS Church, who is an open advocate for the transgender movement and the LGBTQIA plus movement, right? We have all these signals now, right? I think it goes back even farther than we know. I think that talk that elder gave, that excuse me, that 70 gave at General Conference, where he said prophetic counsel doesn't hold its value like vintage comic books do, and you need to just focus on the living guy. What they're telling you there, in my opinion, is get ready. Things are changing, and you need to get in line, and you need to get your toe on the line because things are changing. I can't remember whose podcast it was on. It was kind of a pro Mormon or pro LDS podcast, but this guy said the same thing. This stuff is changing again. Get ready. It's all going to change. And so maybe it's a good change. Maybe it's a change back towards old school Mormonism, but I think what we're going to see is a far more progressive Mormonism now going forward.
Right. Well, for the founders of fundamentalism, they had to choose.
Yep.
The church would not allow them to stay and disagree.
Right.
They were cut off. They were persecuted. They were driven from the church, and they kept and preserved these fundamental doctrines. They kept and preserved these fundamental ordinances, these principles.
Right.
And I think we're coming to a point where we're seeing a new wave of fundamentalists.
We are.
And just like last time, see, the rules for radicals says that you can subvert the organization. You can be pro LGBTQI plus and be a part of this, and you can advocate for it. You can push it. And I think what we're going to find here real soon is that those who are defending the traditional family, those that are defending these doctrines of eternal marriage between a man and a woman, these are going to be the new enemies. These are going to be the people that aren't going to be allowed.
Right.
And even as the church is right now today, I have concerns. You know, you had Taylor on last episode, and he was talking about his experiences with his bishop and stake president, right? That ultimately made it untenable for him to stay in the LDS faith.
Yep.
As an organization. And we're seeing more and more of this. I understand that it's okay for people to disagree. But when the organization will allow for this LGBTQ, this progressive reinvention of Mormonism, that's allowed. That's allowed to stay.
Right.
But the traditional values, suddenly they're not going to be allowed to stay.
Yep.
If you have children in the LDS church, you might have issues and concerns about what your children are being taught at church.
100%.
What are the messages that your children are receiving? That might be a reason that makes this untenable anymore.
Yep.
And I think that's a legitimate concern.
Oh, it's a very legitimate
You
concern.
had, what was his name, Braxton?
Braxton, yep.
Yeah. Again, driven out of the church for his testimony of Adam God.
Dude, he wasn't even teaching it, right? It's not like he was trying to gain a following, right? He talked to a buddy and said, I think there's something to this. And the very act of believing it was enough to get him booted, right? And I find it, I'm going to be careful because I don't want to edit later. I find it the pinnacle of hypocrisy that his state president says, you're going to go to jail because you're going to marry an underage bride. Well, guess what? I've ran the numbers. And while certainly Warren Jeffs did a number on people, there is far more abuse in the LDS church than there is in fundamentalism.
Right.
And
Which goes back to that. Where are your children going to be safe?
yeah, what do you do, right?
What do you do?
And this is the question of the day.
It is. And so in my own journey, right? I was born and raised in the church, kind of a bit of a Jack Foreman,
Yeah.
but I served a mission and I became very converted. I was one of those guys going to the temple every week. I was holding callings. I was the church was
Everything.
everything. I dedicated my life to serving the church. And ultimately, the church is the one that said I'm not welcome.
Right.
That protecting pedophiles is more important than protecting children.
Yep.
That giving a voice to our LGBTQI plus brothers and sisters is more important than giving voice to the doctrine of family.
Yep.
And it puts people in a place, it put me in a place where I had to get out.
Yeah.
If I hadn't gotten out, I would have been driven out. And that was a very, very difficult time in my life. And I'll be honest, I did not just go from a true believing Mormon to a fundamentalist in a single step.
No.
It was a very, very hard process. And I'll be honest, my faith was very much deconstructed. It really kind of so for me, one of the big things is I was always a big, big fan of Bruce R. McConkie.
Me too.
He was like a hero growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And my time on my mission, I'd read his quotes, and I just love Bruce R. McConkie. And I had read, well, I can't remember exactly what he did this a lecture for BYU, and I read this when I was still in the LDS church, and I just accepted it because,
Bruce R
well,
said it.
this is Bruce R. talking, right?
Right.
And he says that this Adam God thing, Brigham never really taught it. These people are taking him out of context. Brigham never taught it. Well, I read the Journal of Discourses, and I found out that Bruce R. McConkie lied to me.
Yep.
He might have had good intentions and motives, but I felt very betrayed.
Right.
Very betrayed by somebody that I looked up to and respected.
100%.
And it got me questioning everything.
Yep.
And for a while, I went to a very dark place where I started thinking maybe none of this is true. Maybe this whole thing is sod. And I had to re-question everything, this faith deconstruction. And I'm seeing people online right now
Doing the same thing.
doing the same thing. They're being labeled as PMOs.
Yep.
We stand,
Physically in, mentally out.
yeah. And my heart goes out to these people because I understand what they're going through. I have been through that process.
Any fundamentalist that comes out of the LDS church, unless it's like a quick ending, we all go through that. That's a normal stage, right? Where you're just,
Right.
oh, I remember those days. They were maddening, right? Because you know differently. And you find yourself getting mad, right? And you're like, have to check yourself. Well, it's not their fault. They don't know, right? And it, dude, I'm with you. My heart goes out to them because it takes a lot out of a person.
Yeah. It took a lot out of me. And ultimately, it was my testimony of the Book of Mormon that I could never fully deconstruct. Right? When it got down to is the Book of Mormon true? Well, I'd look at it, I'd read it, I'd study it again, and I could still feel the Spirit testifying of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon.
Right?
And I thought, well, how can the Book of Mormon be true if the church is not?
Right.
If Bruce R. McConkie's lying to me, how can the Book of Mormon be true?
Right.
And I'll be honest, I think that a faith deconstruction journey is a prerequisite for true faith.
Sure.
I think this is something everybody has to go through at some point.
100%. I agree.
If you're just holding on to a testimony that the church is true because Your parents taught you so. That can be true, but you don't know it for yourself until you really question it, until you really dig deep and figure out what is the foundation of your testimony. So in my own journey, I had I had kind of checked out of the LDS church for a while, and things weren't great in my life. I'll be honest, things were very, very difficult. And it was in that place of darkness that I was looking for where is truth? What can I really hold
Mm,
on to? What actually will make I wanted to be happy like I was when I was a full believer and I believed that everything was right and I could just trust my faith and testimony to the church.
right.
That I could basically abrogate that responsibility.
Yep.
And I missed it. But finally, I just came to this in my own darkest moments. I realized that I have to decide for myself. And I started again with the Book of Mormon. And I'm like, I know that this is true. I have a testimony that this is true. The doctrines in this have been blessed my life.
Right.
So what happened? And it was in that searching for answers to these types of questions that I just was very fortunately brought to Drew Briney's book on Adam God. I was brought to Ogden Kraut's book, The Church and the Priesthood.
Right.
And all of a sudden, so this is interesting. At the exact same time I was doing that, I had also stumbled across Denver Snuffer's book, The Passing of the Heavenly Gift.
Right.
And I read that book in that darkness. And I'm like, this makes sense.
Right.
This makes sense intellectually. But spiritually, I felt violated.
Hmm.
Something was off about, I believe, the conclusions that he was coming to.
Gotcha.
He was talking about real issues, but his conclusions, it brought darkness. And I contrasted that to reading the Journal of Discourses, reading Brigham's sermons on Adam God, reading Ogden Kraut explaining the difference between church and priesthood.
Right.
And there was light there. There was actual light, the light that I was looking for. And so I thought, okay, this must be where it's at. I went through a phase where I thought, okay, the church has gone astray at some point, but there's still these old truths out there.
Right.
And I studied them, I latched onto them, and I went looking for where the real church is at.
Right.
And I became friends with I became friends with Kevin Kraut,
Right.
and he's an independent fundamentalist,
Yep.
but he knows everybody.
Right.
And he was more than happy to introduce me to various fundamentalist groups. And I went and I met with them, I talked with them. And every time it was just like,
Almost, but not quite.
almost, but not quite.
Yep.
And there's a quote from Isaiah. I don't have it here, but it talks about there's some verses in Isaiah that talks about this pride of Ephraim.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about there being vomit upon all the tables. And I realized I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel personally, I didn't feel compelled to associate with any of the fundamentalist groups as a whole.
Right.
I thought that they had preserved maybe truths that the LDS Church had let go of, but for the most part, a lot of these organizations didn't fit.
Right.
They have their own agendas, and so I very slowly, over the course of many, many, many years, started rebuilding my faith as basically as an independent fundamentalist.
Right.
And it was a very difficult journey. It was a hard journey. And again, I'm looking around at the world today. I'm looking at the state of the church today, and I'm seeing very sincere people with very sincere issues and questions and concerns. And I think to myself, I see these people and I think to myself,
I'm them.
I'm them. Yeah, exactly. I was there. If only if only they could have the information that I had had.
Right.
And it's not just the PMOs. I have friends and family that are struggling with their membership in the LDS Church, even now, not necessarily because they're losing their testimony in Joseph Smith, but they're losing their testimony in the world.
Right.
And when the church is apparently allied with that, when the church is bringing this stuff into the chapel, what do they do? Where do they go?
That's been the question I've gotten for the better part of 2 years. And look, not everybody's going to fit in Missouri, right?
Right.
Not everybody is going to fit in with this group or that group. It's people are going to have to come in and, they're going to be in the middle of doing what it is you and I had to do with that deconstruction.
Right.
But I did want to ask you a question on that deconstruction.
Sure.
Would you change that for anything now?
No.
Me neither.
No.
It was hell on earth
It
when I
was
went
hell.
through it,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't trade those days for anything because it's out of that forge, that fire of being heated back up and pounded with with the hammer of truth and letting your misconceptions fall from you like dross, that you come out a usable tool for the Lord because now you have a sharp edge, or now you're a hammer, or whatever it is, you are now able to be used because you've gotten rid of the stuff that wasn't correct, right? You're sharp, you're
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah. I'm no longer afraid.
Right.
I'm no longer afraid that, well, what if Joseph Smith was wrong? What if Brigham was wrong? What if John Taylor was wrong? I don't have those fears anymore because my testimony is their testimony. Not because they said it, but because I've got my own testimony of it.
Right. 100%. And yeah, people will, the people that I talk to, the emails I get, they're right there. They're going through that, right? And all I've been able to say thus far is like, just keep pushing forward, right? Something will break for you. Um, and it will.
It will. One of the struggles with this, though, and I love my fundamentalist brothers and sisters, especially, independents or part of organizations. I have no ill will towards any of them, but they've got their own stuff they're dealing with.
Sure. There's a lot of societal scarring there. When your kids get taken away from you, that tends to leave a scar that runs kind of deep for several generations.
Yeah. Well, and the FLDS church, I mean, they clearly went way astray.
Right.
But how did that happen? Well, a lot of that came from the persecution
Yep.
that drove them into the darkness.
100%.
When you're a kid growing up terrified that your dad is going to be put in jail, you're going to lose your father if the government outs them. You live in fear that, well, you can't trust the government. When the LDS church is assisting the government in hunting down your father,
Right.
the LDS church becomes an enemy.
Yep.
And I can understand the hesitancy, but there
Mhm.
is a hesitancy. And I experienced this myself when I was investigating a lot of these groups that coming out of the LDS church, if I don't have the right last name, right, am I going to be accepted? Can I really be a part of this organization? And for me, the answer most of the time was not really. And it's not to blame them, but there's real concerns there. And because a lot of the Mormon fundamentalists has been underground for so long, it attracts sometimes it attracts weirdos as well.
Yep.
It attracts problematic people. And so a lot of these organizations are very defensive,
And rightfully so.
and rightfully so. They're going to want you to prove yourself.
Yep.
They're going to want you to really show that you're here for the right reason, not just to come grab one of their daughters as an extra wife or something like that. And those are valid concerns.
Yep.
And that's the place where a lot of these organizations are at. And as an independent fundamentalist, I started praying and trying to get some help because I have been converted and I want to share that fruit. But for a lot of people coming out of the LDS Church right now, the existing fundamentalist organizations might not be a very good fit.
At least not for a while.
At least
Right?
not, yeah.
Because look, this is why I'm so glad there are times I'm really glad I'm a convert. Now, there's certain times where I think it'd be just way cool to have that pedigree that goes back to Nauvoo, right? Get some deep Mormon cred. But I will say this, being a convert to the LDS Church made becoming a fundamentalist not as terrifying, I think, right? Because I ripped up the foundation once, right? I went down not just to studs, to the foundation and went, yeah, tear it up. My foundation is bad. Get rid of the foundation. When I became a fundamentalist, like, we're just taking it down to studs.
Right, you're not going so far.
We're not going so far, right? I'm just taking it down to studs, and I may have to move some of that framing to match the foundation, but the foundation is solid, right? And 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 that would be the other thing I'd say to people as they're struggling in the church is that your foundation is good,
Yeah.
right? Not there may be a few things you have to correct, a few sections that have maybe cracked, but by and large, your foundation solid, right? Now we just got to make the structure match the foundation. If we can do that, you'll be in business.
Right. Right. And ultimately, I don't have an answer. I myself wish there was somebody out in the world today who could say, I am the Lord's anointed. I have all the answers. I do tennis with Christ on Tuesdays,
Right.
and I know exactly what needs to happen. And I just it sure would be nice.
Yep.
But I have a hunch that in these latter days, that God has basically already restored the things that we need.
Right.
He's waiting for us to take these principles and actually run with them. And this is where there's a progressive side where I think that we can get to a point of establishing a Zion society
Mm-hmm.
without God sending one mighty and strong to tell us all exactly what to do.
100%.
Brigham Young's vision for the kingdom of God that he was trying to establish in Utah, right, required a serious amount of trusting people.
Yeah.
And the take that I get, having studied Brigham Young extensively, is that Brigham Young had a responsibility to preserve the church. And because of that, there were times when he somewhat authoritatively told people what's what.
Mm-hmm.
But his ultimate vision for the kingdom of God was a nation of kings and priests, queens and priestesses.
Yep. 100%.
And I think to myself, how do we get to a society, a Zion society, where we all know the Lord?
Right.
I don't have to depend upon a single one man. I don't have
Right.
to abrogate that responsibility, but that I can take ownership of my own faith, my own relationship with divine.
That was necessary for Brigham's day, right? Because we forget or I shouldn't say we forget. Sometimes I think it's easy to overlook this fact that it's not like the Saints got to Utah and went, we're good. We're good. We don't have to do anything else. No, that's not what happened. They got to the Valley of the Great Salt Lake, and Brigham said, yeah, head south. And you guys, head north. Now, those guys I felt sorry for because they ended up in Rexburg. Nonetheless, they went,
They
right?
did.
And there's no telegraph. When they first get to Utah, there's no telegraphs. There's no calling up Brigham and being like, how do I do this? No, you had to go get your answers yourself. And how are you going to administer the gospel with this little group of people in Nevada, in Arizona, in southern Utah, away from church headquarters, right?
Right.
You were required to take ownership in those days. And it's something that since correlation began in the LDS church, it's been one abrogation of responsibility after another, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problems we see. When Taylor and I have our discussion last week, it's ultimately about responsibility, right? No, 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 Bishop, don't you take responsibility. I just need you to call the helpline, and the lawyer will tell you what to do.
Right. Where's the priesthood in that?
Right, right. And so you're 100% correct. A lot of Mormonism's history in the LDS Church has been an abrogation of personal responsibility to the one man. And that is what has led us here.
It is. And, it's not even just the church.
Nope.
Every institution in society today is
Yes.
saying, hey, we know what's best. We'll be responsible. We will be responsible for your health. Listen to the Department of Health. And when they say jump, jump, and you'll be okay.
Or eat 7 servings of grain so you end up diabetic and in horrible health, right? I mean,
Right? Education.
yep,
The government knows what's best. They know what our kids need. Send our kids to their schools, and they will take care of us,
allegedly.
allegedly.
Yep,
Right? But at least for me, it rubs me wrong.
me too.
I don't think that, I'll be honest, that this is Satan's plan.
100%.
Satan's plan was, I will take responsibility for everybody's salvation. They won't have responsibility for any of it. And I'll bring them all back.
Yep,
That's what he promised. And that's what the world looks like to me today.
100%.
All of our institutions, from education, healthcare, government, you name it.
Government's easy to see it in, right? We are constantly looking for the guy, right?
Right.
Who's the next George Washington? He ain't coming. You better get busy doing that yourself and find someone else who agrees with you on some of those things so you can change them. But the one guy, whether in government, in the church, yeah, I don't think it's going to be that way this time around. I think now we're in a time of people have enough access to information. They have access to prayer and revelation. We're going to have to do it ourselves.
Right. So this is the world we see ourselves in. And this is something that I've been praying a lot about. And over the course of the last year, I've been getting some promptings that what is needed is a place for people to land.
Mm-hmm.
Some place where they can keep their foundation.
Yes.
Maybe don't excavate all the way and tear that whole thing out because it's hard to rebuild. I've been there. And I started having a vision for a place for Mormons, not just fundamentalists, but all of us, where we can work together to preserve, maintain, and live our values and standards. I don't want to have to worry about going to the LDS church with my family and worry about what's happening to my kids. Is there a predator in the ward that wants to groom them? Is there false doctrines even? I mean, you were talking about these issues. there's something seriously wrong in my mind when a child has to be interviewed by the bishop
Yeah.
for worthiness to be baptized.
100%.
If we believe the Book of Mormon is true, then children, before they reach the age of accountability, it doesn't matter what happened.
No,
That happened
in the grace period.
in that grace period. So what kind of standard do children need to live up to be able to receive baptism?
Right.
It's very pharisaical in my mind. And it takes, so again, it's taking away responsibility. As a father, I think that I am responsible to teach and raise my children
Mm-hmm.
so that they will want to be baptized, that they will be prepared to be baptized. And that decision on whether they are ready or not falls on me as a father.
Right.
It doesn't fall upon whoever happened to be called as bishop to ask potentially inappropriate and invasive questions about to my children in an interview. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it again goes back to that loss of responsibility. And I don't think that we grow. If we're doing the right thing because the church is telling us to, we're not really doing the right thing. We need to be
Right.
doing the right thing because we are convicted
That's right.
that we are doing the right thing, that is the right thing. And so there's a bit of a problem. We've got a bit of a problem with the world trying to subvert the church. We've also got a problem with some fundamental our fundamental idea of what the church is supposed to be. We've kind of bought in, I think, to this idea that the church is going to be our father and mother. They're gonna tell us what to do. As long as we obey, things are gonna work out all right. And that's not happening,
Right.
unfortunately. I wish that could be true for people. But for a lot of people, they are in line with the program. They're following along, and things aren't so great.
Right.
Things aren't going so well. And I was talking with a buddy of mine, Jeff Aldridge, and he
Good
shared,
dude.
great dude. And he shared this with me, and I thought he nailed it. The church is now led by the government. The government has become the God
Not wrong.
of the church. And right, we look at this historically under Heber J. Grant, and that's where the shift really kicks in. And it's no longer about what is true. It is about what will the government allow us to get away with.
Mm-hmm.
On the issues of the vaccine,
Yeah.
that's a turning point for a lot of members, I believe, in the LDS church,
Sure it was. Yep.
because they already have their own values on their health. And this experimental jab that is safe and effective,
Allegedly.
allegedly, isn't something that they had a testimony of. But when you've got the leader of the church who is supposedly infallible and cannot make mistakes, and that we're being asked to surrender our responsibility to this person to make sure everything's okay, and something goes wrong,
Yeah.
it can shake things to the foundation. And I understand why. It really does create this dilemma. And I don't know if people realize this, but it creates a dilemma because of the existing church policies.
Right.
One of which is that the church doesn't apologize.
Right.
And this is an odd thing to say, but so I have my own understanding on the theology of repentance that I get from the Book of Mormon, and that I experience in my own life. And that is that it's okay to make mistakes
Yeah.
as long as you repent. And what does repent mean? It means to turn away from
Right.
and to try to make amends, to try to do better. As a father, when I'm working with my children, they're not going to bed. They're staying up late. I lose my temper sometimes, right? And I'm like, get to bed or I'm spanking butts.
Right.
And then I have to reflect and say, you know, my kids do need to go to sleep. I don't want them to go to bed on time because I'm a scary tyrant, though. That's not the kind of
Right.
father that I want to be. And I'll talk to them about it. I'll talk to them the next morning and say, I'm sorry, I lost my temper. I can apologize to my children. And that's important for me because if I make a mistake, I've got to try to make that right. But what do you do if you are sustained as this infallible prophet and you tell everybody to get this jab because it's safe and effective?
There is a lot wrong with that period in history of the church. And I say history because it feels like it was a while ago, but it really wasn't. Right? That was a
Yeah.
few years ago. And I think this is the first time you saw cracks begin to form. Um, because there was a large segment. And the segment in question was the one that makes the church operate on the local level, who were saying, hold on, how do we know? Right? And where does personal revelation kick in here?
Are you allowed to be responsible for yourself?
Yes, are you allowed to?
I don't believe a mask is going to protect me. Am I
Right.
allowed?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
you are allowed, but
There's consequences.
there's consequences. And are they natural consequences or are they artificial consequences?
I remember the Christmas after um oh, and this just chapped my rear end to know it was horrible. That Christmas after the vaccine comes out, the church said Temple Square's back open unless you've not been vaccinated, in which case stay away. And I was like, oh, just telling the unwashed masses to stay out of there, right? I mean,
Right.
it was a little brutal.
Well, you know, I have family members that were intending to serve missions,
Hmm.
and they're being told they need to take this vaccine or they can't serve a mission. What an awful place to be in where you can't exercise your own responsibility for your health.
Yeah.
That's a place that nobody should have to be, a situation that nobody should have to be put into.
Nope.
But they were. And so what do you do about that? If you are the guy that maybe now you realize put out some bad advice.
Absolutely.
At this point, even our government is starting to say, okay, yeah, we might have really screwed the pooch on this. Maybe these vaccines aren't effective. Well, they've admitted these vaccines were not effective. And now even the government's starting to say, well, maybe they're not very safe either.
Right.
If I had counseled my own children to get that vaccine, and now I have this new information and I realize that was a mistake, I need to be able to talk to them about that.
Absolutely.
For my own repentance process, I need to be able to ask them about that, talk to them about it. What do you do with the policy though is you're not allowed. The church doesn't apologize.
No, Dallin H. Oaks said so, right? The church does not apologize. Period.
Right.
I do believe it's good for fathers and mothers when they get stuff wrong to talk to their kids about it. Right? I don't think that's bad. I think what that shows is what healthy servant leadership looks like. Now, if the church can't model that, what are we left with?
Right. Well, a terrible situation. At a personal level, I feel sympathy for Russell M. Nelson
Sure.
because he's in a place where imagine he's in a place where he can't really fully repent of his mistakes because of his position. And I guarantee you, he's concerned that if he were to apologize, well, why not apologize, right? Well, because people might lose faith.
Yep.
Lose faith in what?
The one man.
prophetic infallibility, this one
Yep.
man. And the truth is, they'd probably lose people. They'd probably
Probably.
lose people. And so what an awful situation for the prophet of the church to be in, where he can't correct mistakes out of fear of driving other people away from faith. I mean, he kind of becomes like this weird sin offering
Yep.
in and of himself, right? Where he's going to have to just bear that.
Mm.
He doesn't get personal repentance because the organization requires this of him.
True. That's a rough, rough place to be.
Yeah, it is a rough place to be. And it doesn't have to be that way,
Right.
right? And we understand that, but we've been in this fundamentalist field for a long time.
Yeah, we've tore it all apart. We've put it back together. Even why we weren't technically fundamentalists, we were closeted fundamentalists, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we were pretty not. We were going to the back alleys to buy the illegal Ogden Kraut books, right? But yeah, no, we've been through the fire here on this a little bit.
Right. So I guess it's with that idea that we have been through this fire, and there is a need, an absolute need, in my opinion. It's not
Before we go there, I
okay.
do want to sum up real quick all the issues we just talked about
Okay,
before we
delve in.
dive in to the solution. And I want to take a quick break. We have in the LDS church a church that has made sure that their parishioners abrogated their own personal responsibility.
Yep.
The church now is signaling in every way that they are going to take a hard left, right? And when I say a hard left, they're going into LGBTQ now to figure out how to make it all work inside the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Proof of that, the communications guy, right? Active, outspoken advocate for the trans movement and LGBTQ. The fact that the family proclamation has not been canonized yet. I'm just saying, if you're not going to use it, can we have it? I felt like that was inspired, right?
Absolutely.
They could
It
end
was inspired.
they
For
can
sure it
they
was
can end
inspired.
that whole debate tomorrow if they just said, yeah, that's now scripture. It would be done. They haven't. Okay. We have the abuse stuff going on. We have, quite frankly, money laundering happen, right? That one I have mixed feelings on because one organization I don't like is sticking it to another organization I don't like. And I'm
Right.
like, I would almost side a little bit more with the church on that one, but nonetheless, it's not a great look.
Well, even with that, right? That was one of the things also that really woke me up was I'm like, why is the church building a the most expensive mall we've ever seen across from the temple
A great and
with
spacious building.
a great and spacious building with these apartments at the top for the wealthy, rich people who don't have families, because there's no room for a family in these kinds of
Right?
apartments to live as elites of Utah, looking down upon the temple.
Yep. Yep. So we have all those things, right? And now we have intellectual dishonesty in terms of this stuff with like that video you were showing, an inconvenient faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have actual active Mormons on there, right? And I use that term loosely,
Right.
but guys like Mason, guys like um Harry Reid, who was a Mormon, active Mormon who has passed, I think, last 2 or 3 years. We have all of these now that are starting to coalesce. And what this is showing is that the church is moving in a far more nasty place. It's going to go way progressive very quickly.
They're letting the subversives in, and they're
Yes,
and they're not dealing with it. They're not
absolutely.
addressing these issues. These things can
Absolutely.
be. You don't even need to canonize. You don't even need to canonize the family proclamation. All you need to do is come out and say, "Hey, this is." Let's have a general conference talk and let's just lay down what God's laws really are And if you're struggling with that, hey, we can help you. But
Right.
these are the laws.
Yep.
Instead, we get these mixed messages,
Yep.
and we have these great faithful guys in the LDS Church trying to defend
Yep.
the family, trying to defend the church from this hostile rules for radical liberal worldly takeover. And the church doesn't have their back.
Nope. Nope. And look, if they don't have their most public members' backs, they are not going to have the back of the run-of-the-mill member, right?
Right.
And that's just something that's sad to say.
Well, you had April
April to Spain.
to Spain, yeah.
Church didn't have her back in that battle.
I I mean, it's terrible what happened to her. I
Yep.
mean, the follow up is she won the lawsuit,
But still kind of lost
but kind of
because
lost because now she's got hundreds of $1,000s of debt.
so if anyone's got a pile of cash, go donate to April's GoFundMe. She could use it.
Yeah,
But we have changing ordinances now, right? And the changes seem to be in a manner which might accommodate a lot of what we just talked about. And
well, it already has.
right,
Feminism was one of these issues. They had a whole video on the feminism,
yep,
and their response is, "Hey, look, the church already is feminist."
yep, yep. Well, we had Fair, who just and I like Fair. They've done a lot of good work. But just recently at this last conference they had just what 2 weeks ago, they said, "Oh, well, the priesthood is great because it's," and I'm paraphrasing here, but you get the message when you go look at it. It emasculates men.
Makes men more feminine.
Well, no, I don't think that's what the priesthood is doing, right? It shouldn't be doing. And so now we're in a place where if you are your run-of-the-mill LDS person who feels this at their core, right? You pay your tithing, you go to the temple, you serve in your callings, you do all those things, and now you're left wondering, what do I do? And I think Justin's got some good answers for you, and we're going to cover that, but we need to take a quick break. All right. So we've laid everything out that could be wrong. What's the solution?
Well, one potential solution would be to take a rules for radical approach
Mm-hmm.
and try to subvert the church back. I don't think that's the right solution, though.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't the right solution for me and my family.
Right.
And for people that might feel like the church is still working and it's worth fighting for, I'm good with that. I respect that. But for some people, like it was for me and my family, it just isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I think, with the changes to some of the ordinances, the temple ordinances in particular.
Right.
These are, I think, are legitimate concerns to have.
Absolutely.
Is the endowment the church performs today recognized by God?
That's a good question. I'm not ready to answer that wholeheartedly, but I definitely have some feelings on it.
Well, yeah, there were some changes made,
Big changes.
big changes. And these changes accommodate the world.
Right.
These are changes that accommodate feminist ideas and beliefs. I don't believe that these changes are in alignment with God's truth.
Right.
I don't believe you can take these covenants of the temple and reinterpret them
Right.
to be something different. Like I wonder. So this is kind of an anecdote, but I just kind of wonder who the last woman to go through a live endowment
Oh.
was who covenanted to obey her husband as he obeyed the Lord.
Yeah.
And I wonder if she thinks that's not fair.
Yeah.
One more day, if it had been one more day, she would be held to a different standard.
Yep.
And is that right?
No.
Is your endowment correct? I mean, either it was wrong from the beginning, and all those women made covenants God was not asking of them, or it's wrong now.
Either way, you turn God into a monster.
Yeah.
Right? Because either God knew it was wrong all along and he let women do that, or God's a respecter of persons now and says, you're so much better than your ancestors. You can just,
We've evolved.
we've evolved. You can just brush past that. Either way, it's not a great turnout.
No, it's not. It's not. And I don't even believe it's actually empowering to women.
No,
This doesn't empower women.
nope,
And it disenfranchises men of their responsibility.
100%.
This is my own take, but my understanding of what it means to be the head of a household means I am responsible for having unity with my wife. It doesn't mean I'm the dictator. It doesn't
Nope.
mean that my way or the highway. It means I am responsible that me and my wife have unity.
Yep.
And if there's not, well, what is what are we taught about the priesthood? How does it operate?
Amen to the priesthood when you exercise any degree of the priesthood in unrighteousness.
Right. So it's a responsibility put upon men in the temple.
Yep.
It is a huge responsibility
100%.
when our wives covenant to obey us
Yep.
as we are obeying, because now we have this serious responsibility to not only have a good relationship with God, but to have a correct relationship with our wives
Yep.
so that
Yep.
we can guide them and help them and learn from them as well.
Yep.
And we just threw that all away
100%.
to accommodate the world.
Yep.
So for people in the LDS church that are struggling with these things, with the direction things are going, with their concerns for the safety of their family, whether physical safety with this culture that allows abuse, or spiritual safety of can you trust that the church isn't going to normalize these spiritually damn. I think it was who's that guy? That liberal news guy.
Bill Maher?
Bill Maher. Bill Maher was talking about like what is going on in the world.
Right. Right.
Like if you're just born that way, what is going on?
Right. Right.
Because you look at the percentage of people that have these things and you look at where we're at now, it doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
No. And it's interesting when guys like Bill Maher start to recognize like, this has gone horribly wrong, right?
Right.
And look, he's still not a conservative. I'm not saying he's a conservative, but I do believe he's an honest broker, right? He's at least honest enough to say, yeah, there's some stuff wrong here.
So, Richard Dawkins, the grandfather of anti-religion
Yep.
at all levels. This guy made his career
Yep.
out of trying to destroy religion, has now come out and said, you know what? Maybe Christianity is not so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not so bad because I'm looking at the world today and it looks like it's kind of Western civilization seems to be falling apart. And maybe religion had a purpose after all. I don't believe it still, but geez, maybe we kind of need it.
Yes.
Even Richard Dawkins, of all people, is saying,
Not exactly known for hanging with the Pope. You know what I mean?
yeah, is recognizing that, hey, you know what? Maybe having religious convictions to truth, maybe these outdated morality guidelines, maybe those were a good thing.
It reminds me of a scene from the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard. When you remember when like the cop's car gets like blown up
Yeah.
and Bruce Willis sticks his head out the window and goes, "Welcome to the party, pal." Right? That's how I feel with Dawkins and Marr. I'm glad they're here, but sure could have used you about 7 years ago.
Right. You spent your whole life tearing this down, and now all of a sudden you're realizing, you know what?
We kind of need that.
Maybe that was actually vital to society.
Right? Yep.
Maybe it was vital to society. So what do you do? Where do you go?
It's an interesting conundrum, right? Because we illuminated part of it, right?
Yeah.
You have a people in the LDS church right now, a segment of them, and I think that segment is going to grow if the trend continues,
Yeah.
right? Look, I've showed you my emails, right? They are plentiful and they are abundant and rich with angst.
Well, you've told me about them. You haven't shared them per se, though.
Right. Yeah. No, I've shared a couple with you, the more compelling ones. And the the other thing is that, if you're an LDS person coming out of the church, all you know of fundamentalism is Warren Jeffs.
Right.
And if
It's easy to reject that too.
right, and it's easy to reject that too, as you should,
As you should.
right? And so it feels precarious, right? Having been in that space, it feels precarious because you don't know where to go. And there is a breach, right? There's a breach between the LDS church and these old school doctrines and fundamentalism. And what you're going to about to talk about is how do we build that bridge across that breach?
Exactly. It's about building a bridge.
Right.
And basically, the impression that I got was we need an organization, and not just me. I am not a prophet. I am not a one man.
Come on, dude. I was ready for you to throw down you're the one mighty and strong right here.
I'm the one. I'm the Lamanite prophet.
Yeah.
And I've got all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that people need to be able to take responsibility for themselves.
Right.
And I want to assist that in any possible way that I can. That's where I feel called. I didn't feel called to join a specific group in fundamentalism. I've maintained my independence. There are a lot of good people in fundamentalism though. And there's a lot of good here, but it can be really hard to make that transition.
Oh, absolutely. I've had the opportunity to associate with a lot of different fundamentalists, although I'm in a different place because I was just the moron who happened to say, yeah, I'll start a podcast about this, right? I mean,
Right.
so there was that. But being super outgoing is definitely a plus, but not all people are super outgoing, right?
Yeah.
I'm I understand I'm kind of an outlier in that, right? And so for your average run-of-the-mill member, they're left wondering, what do we do?
Right.
And this is what I really dig on this idea when you told me. And like you said, there's already a lot of great groups. We don't need another church.
Nope. Nope. So the idea here is a ministry.
Okay, explain the difference between a ministry and a church.
Well, they're kind of the same thing in a lot of ways, but the idea behind a ministry is it's got a focused purpose.
Okay.
And that's the difference here is the intended focus. So and we talked about this a little bit with this idea of the Orthodox Church,
Right.
how it looks to me like the original idea here in early Christianity was you had different bishops in charge of different congregations, and well, they were the priesthood leaders,
Right.
and they were responsible. And you got Paul running around trying to teach him as best as he could to help him get there. And at some point, the church in Rome says, actually, our guy is the one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else everybody else is doing is invalid. But then even within the Catholic Church, you have different groups. You have the
Right.
Hospitallers. That's a ministry. They're like, we're Catholics, but we're really concerned about people being sick. And we want to heal people who are physically ill.
Okay, so I see. So it would be a common religious belief held by many, but a separate group dedicated to one certain thing, kind of.
A specific aspect.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And it is absolutely my faith and belief that at some point we are going to have a gathering at Adamondiaman,
Right.
and all of this stuff is eventually going to get put in order.
Right.
We're going to have that reconnection with that divine. But a lot of people are sitting around waiting for it.
Right.
I've been sitting around waiting for it. And the Spirit's whispering to me that you have been given the priesthood. You have a responsibility to serve. When we look at what Jacob talks about in the Book of Mormon, he wasted and wore out his life to magnify his priesthood calling. And as an independent fundamentalist, it's really hard to do that.
Yep.
It's now just me and my family.
Right.
We don't have that body of believers to
Right.
work with, to learn from, to teach. So the idea here is a ministry for not just our LDS brothers and sisters, but also for independents like me, people that are parts of groups like you, a collaborative effort to bring in a fullness of the gospel. And don't get me wrong, I love the fundamentalist groups. A lot of them struggle with stuff like missionary work. And I look at the LDS Church, it does missionary work so well.
Right.
Why can't we have both?
Gotcha.
Wouldn't we be stronger coming together? And if you know anything about the history of fundamentalism, it's Mormonism in general, not just fundamentalism. Mormonism is really good at breaking off
Right.
about irreconcilable differences and saying that
I would say Christianity in general.
Christianity in general, yeah. This is just something that part of the natural man
Right.
that says, I think I'm right,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore everybody else is wrong.
100%. Yep.
And I'm thinking we have more in common than we have different.
Right.
Even with the LDS Church, we have more in common than we have different.
Sure.
But to truly receive the fullness of the restoration, to receive all that was restored, that God had in plan for us, we need to come together. And the idea behind this ministry is, on the one hand, this is a place for people like me, when I came out of the LDS Church, to be able to be a part of something, to have some structure, and to have an opportunity to commune with the saints
Gotcha.
and not have to do it alone.
Okay.
And it's also an opportunity for those who have preserved through great sacrifice, have preserved the fullness of the gospel, to be able to be of service, to help teach, to help minister, to serve, and maybe try and bring this all back together, and in a way that,
Or at least a segment of
at
us.
least a segment of us, and show that we can make this work, that we can have differences of individual doctrine, but we can be unified on a standard.
Okay. So you're not talking about, when you say unifying, you're not talking about all the churches uniting under one banner.
No,
Okay.
no, I think it's okay to have different flavors
You know,
of Mormonism.
when I first started this podcast, I lamented the fact we were so fractured. Today, I kind of celebrate that,
There's a beauty to it.
right? Because I'm not an adherent, and I'm sorry to anybody who is, and I don't mean this as a critique, but because I'm not a one manner,
Mm-hmm.
that frees me up to look at a lot of different places and go, you know what? There's beauty in that group that out there in Missouri that built that temple. And you know what? There's beauty and goodness in the Nielsen Nailers. And the folks at that I've talked to from the AUB, good people,
Really good people.
right? Folks from the LDS Church, I love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Groups I used to associate with, a lot of good people there,
Right.
a lot of good people, right? And so I can appreciate the beauty and the goodness. And because I believe that priesthood authority was spread around, I don't have to just discount when they say, "Oh, I've been baptized," or "I've been
Right.
endowed," right? Okay, good.
Great. I can
Good.
respect
Let's
that.
hang,
Yeah.
right? And And because I don't hold to this idea that, oh no, there's just this one man and he's got it. And if you're outside the one man, you're screwed, right?
Hmm.
And so you're not necessarily, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not talking about everybody coming together under a one man or even a one council.
No, but
Okay.
I am talking about we can all come together as inheritors of this restoration,
Okay.
as people that have been blessed with the restoration of the gospel and the fullness of the gospel,
Okay.
and that we can work together, we can respect each other, and we can be different,
Yes. Yep. Okay. So
and
look,
that's okay.
so look, when you first brought this to me, I was nervous a little bit, right? Because I'm like, bro, where are you going? Right?
Yeah.
That was my first thought. Where are you going? Um, but as you explained it to me, and I've seen it now start to be put into action because it's quite a ways here, right? You're
Yeah.
not here unless you're darn close, right? Um, Tell me what the purpose of the ministry will be. Explain it.
Right. So this is, and there's a reason I'm going with ministry and not church,
Okay.
because in Mormonism we get this idea that the church is this institution that has all the answers and all the responsibility. And I'm not claiming to have that.
Okay.
I'm not a prophet. I'm not this guy that meets with Jesus and has all the answers for everybody. But there needs to be a place. There needs to be a place for people who want to learn about the fullness of the gospel. And there needs to be a flavor of Mormonism for those of us who are solid on ideas like family, that are solid on ordinances, and want to be able to receive the ordinances as they were given to us. Brigham Young was specifically commissioned by Joseph Smith to finish off that endowment and organize that, put that together. I don't, I know for myself, I would want to receive that endowment that Brigham Young restored for us. And where can I get that? I want to live according to the laws and principles that God has laid forth. Where can you do that? I want to be able to worship in a community where there's not a policy in that organization that can lead to abuses or allow for the infiltration of a very liberal agenda that wants to remake our religion into something that is acceptable to the world,
Or even someone who wants to police your thought and your beliefs.
or police your thoughts and beliefs. Yeah. So ultimately, if you are a Mormon, you are independent. You might not realize this yet, but you are independent because you are responsible,
Right.
and you will be held accountable.
Okay. So as people come to this organization, this ministry,
Hmm.
the idea behind it, and again, not putting words in your mouth, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, is that it's all, as you've explained it to me before, it's almost like a spiritual triage unit,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
People are going to come in, right? And they're going to be needing to know about all these old doctrines, right?
Right.
And be taught about them, and also a place where you can just go and worship with other people and bounce ideas off of. And then from there, people can start to get their legs under them again, get their sea legs back, and say, okay, you know what? Maybe I should go with the Nielsen Nailers.
Right.
I like those folks out there in Missouri. I'll go with them. Or, gosh, Joshua Erickson seems to do a real good job at being an independent, or Justin, and I can pick their brains and find out how they do it. And so this will give people a chance to come into some place to let's face it, fundamentalism is its own society, just like the
Yeah.
LDS churches,
Yeah,
right?
there's a culture to it.
There's a culture, and to come in cold, I mean, look, unless you're extremely obtuse, like this guy, um, you're going to be uncomfortable asking questions because you don't even know what questions you should or can ask,
Right.
right? This gives a place for people to go in the interim of finding where else they want to be, a chance to get their feet under them again. Is that a correct, fair assessment?
Exactly. And a
Okay.
place where we can come together and worship together.
Right.
So if you need ordinances done, we'll be able to connect you with the people to get the ordinances you need. If, but also an organization that gives responsibility back to the priesthood.
Okay.
So rather than a hierarchical organization where you've got somebody at the top telling everybody else what they need to do, my vision is an organization that will empower people to exercise their own priesthood. If you feel like your child is ready to be baptized, that's the parent's decision.
Right.
That's not an organization's decision. The organization should be there to support you in that and help you with that if you need it, but that's up to you.
Right.
So all of these things, priesthood ordinations. If you're not sure if your priest is legitimate, what do you do?
Right.
Well, we have priesthood lines in
Yep.
fundamentalism that we are confident in.
Yep.
If you want to be reconfirmed, this will be a place you can go to be reconfirmed,
Rebaptized.
rebaptized. If you want to. If you have faith in your priesthood, if you have faith in your baptism, you have faith in your ordinances, that's okay too.
Right.
This wouldn't be an organization telling you how you need to live your life. This is an organization that is going to empower you and assist you in learning how to take that responsibility back, how to be a priesthood leader.
Okay. So let's talk about the structure a little bit because I
Okay.
think that's where
Yep.
at least my mind went next, right?
Okay.
Is okay, is there going to be a one man?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, no. So to be clear, this organization is being led up by a board of directors right now. And here's the thing, I don't have all the answers. This is going to be a little bit of an adventure for everybody involved, including me, including Dave.
Yep.
So right now we have a board of directors where we've got me and Moroni Jessup, and we're independent fundamentalists. We also have on that board Dave,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got Sean Anderson, and they're with this the I forget the official name, but
The Missouri
the
group or
Missouri
the
group.
Missouri group slash lobs.
Yeah, Missouri group slash lobs, and we've got Taylor Smith, who's a Nielsen Nailer. And both of those organizations, the group out here and the Nielsen Nailers, have shown their support
Right.
to.
And yeah.
They're not officially backing this, right? But they are willing to let their members assist in this work collaboratively.
Yep.
And that's a pretty miraculous thing
That is a miraculous thing.
to bring together these two different groups and independent fundamentalists.
Yep. Yep. And just say, let's work together
Let's
where we
work
can.
together. Yeah, let's work together where we can.
Okay. So tell me about how it's organized then, right?
Right.
Because it's one thing to have some people come together and say, okay, now we're going to work together. But you can't really work together unless there's kind of some organization to folks, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about the different organizations that are going to be offered in this ministry for a second.
Right. So right now we've got 5 main auxiliaries to this organization.
Okay, what are those?
We have a women's organization, a type of relief society for women. We have a male priesthood organization, like Elders Quorum.
Okay.
And these two organizations are going to be responsible to help build brotherhood and sisterhood among each other and to provide opportunities to serve
Okay.
and assist and be a part of this work. Like this isn't, because here's the other thing. I don't think that you really grow and learn outside of doing.
I agree. I agree. At some point,
You got to be involved.
you got to screw some stuff up. right? I don't know how else to put it, right?
Yeah.
I know every time I get a new guy that comes to work for me, I train him. I never set him up for failure, but I do expect they're going to screw some stuff up. And that's good because
Yeah.
that's how they're going to learn,
Exactly.
right? And so this is a place where people can come to gain that experience that they can't gain in the LDS church from their callings, right? Everything is so highly correlated now that yes, they have taken out the ability to make a mistake, but they have also taken out the ability to really grow and learn from mistakes.
Right. The church is supposed to be an organization that allows us to be co-creators.
Yes,
And in everything else in the world, we've become cogs, and in religion as well. For a lot of us, we become cogs in a machine. We're not co-creating. We are following the rules. We're following a handbook. We're following a lesson manual. And we don't have an opportunity to experience that our own connection with God
right,
and to learn what God would teach us.
right,
And we're going to make mistakes in that process.
absolutely,
We are all going to make mistakes in that process. But that's again going back to this doctrine of repentance, right? There's no shame in being a fallen man or a fallen woman.
right,
As long as we're willing to get back up again,
yeah,
try it again, that's the plan of salvation.
100%, 100%. Okay, so
So
the
we've got a men's and women's organization.
okay, the men's organization is going to teach guys. I'm going to go to something that Russell M. Nelson said once. Same meeting, by the way, I just told you about.
Right.
He said something that really struck me. And he said, in the church, we've been really good at passing along the authority of the priesthood, but we've done a poor job in teaching men how to access the power of the priesthood.
Right.
And as you and I had talked, we felt like getting that men's organization to learn how to tap into that power in the priesthood is a different thing, but one that I think people are so hungry for
Right.
because we don't see those same kind of experiences in today's Mormonism, by and large, right? It is out there,
It is,
but it's not as plentiful as what it was.
especially on a mission.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, on my mission, my first mission president told me, where he told us, missionaries, don't ask for permission if I'm going
Okay.
to have to tell you no.
Interesting.
But at the same time, don't screw up.
Right.
Don't make me have to
Right.
don't
Right.
make me have to make rules.
Check. Check. I get what he's doing there.
But
Right. Yeah.
right,
I get what he's doing there.
you get what he's doing there.
Yeah. So so that's two of the organizations. Now,
That
is the women's organization, is it going to function like a relief society? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
I believe so. But even here, so when you look back to the original Relief Society, right? Joseph Smith wanted to call it the Benevolent Society.
Right.
And Emma Smith decided, no, we're going to call this the Relief Society. And you look at the original ideas and purpose of this Relief Society, and it, to a certain degree, it really is intended to be more of a female priesthood.
Right.
That really was the idea. And I'm not saying that you ordain women,
No.
but women also need opportunities
Yes.
to have their own stewardships, their own responsibilities. And again, in the LDS Church, I don't know, Relief Society, from my family, I don't know, I've never been, right? So I might be speaking out of place here, but for a lot of my family, it's not working for them. It's a chore.
Right.
It's this homemaking class, and that's not really what they need
Yeah.
for their own growth and development. And so with this women's organization as well, we've got some women that we know are grounded and we trust in the things of the gospel and in the doctrine. And we're gonna let the women figure that out as best as they can as well. And we're gonna support them in that. And they're gonna support us as men.
Yeah, it's been a very hands-off approach.
It's a very hands-off approach because I don't think it works otherwise.
No,
If I've got to be a one man, then then this thing's gonna fail from the beginning. It's just
right.
gonna become some other group or sect, and
What we want to do.
that's not what I want to do. It's
Yeah,
certainly not what I want to be either.
right, right. Okay, so those are the two main factions, right?
Those are the two main.
Now there's another one which is over education, right?
Yeah, a Sunday school type organization that will be responsible for a Sunday school, and Taylor's part of that group.
Okay,
And he's already doing these gospel principles classes, and we're going to roll that in
okay,
as basically our Sunday school, a place where you can join in and learn these things and participate, right? Like we have, if you haven't been to Taylor's class, we have people in there that aren't even Mormon
yeah.
that come in and share their thoughts and ideas and their opinions.
It's been a beautiful experience to see that work.
It's been very beautiful to see that.
When Taylor first brought that idea up, I'm like, yes, do that, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, no. So that'll be rolled in there as well.
But he's created a culture in that class where even a non-member
Yep,
can feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I've got a question about this. I've got a concern about that," and we can talk about it, and we can discuss those things. And you're not shamed for asking a weird question
right,
or for having trouble understanding something. That's okay.
right. There have been some deep, profound conversations through that class, which has been amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Um, and again, like you said, it's everybody. It's LDS folks, it's fundamentalist investigators, it's non-Mormons, right?
Yeah.
Just all coming in and there's not been a fight, right? There's nobody that's been upset in terms of, calling someone else a dirty, filthy name, right? I mean,
Right.
it's been very well. There's no reason that can't work. So that will be there as well. So
Yep.
you have a men's organization, a women's organization, and then a kind of Sunday school.
Yep.
Okay. So do people have to move to Missouri to do this?
No. So we're looking at doing this through Zoom, at least for now,
Right.
to make it accessible for as many people as possible.
Okay. Now I can already hear the questions coming up. I'm already active in my church, right?
Mm-hmm.
This sounds cool, but I don't want to leave what I got, right?
Right.
I'm happy there. How do they balance this then?
Well, exactly. And if you're where you're at is you've got investment in another organization, you can still be a part of this. And even with like Taylor Smith. Taylor Smith is a Nielsen Naylor. And that's where his loyalties lie organizationally, but he's still participating.
Right.
So this isn't you've got to be this or that. But this can be something where you can be that
And
and this. And as you work through that, wherever you land, the point is that that's where you're supposed to be.
so even someone who's in the LDS church and they want to keep attending their Sunday meetings can come into this, test it out,
Yeah.
and make a decision.
Make a decision. Yeah. And it might be, I don't know. I'm only responsible for myself, right?
Right.
It might be the right place for somebody to come into this, get their footing under them, and go back into the LDS church and make a difference there.
Right.
I believe that there are people that are probably called to that.
Yep.
And there's no shame in that. But some people might come in, they might say, hey, you know what, this we're working really well. And I feel like I know how to be an independent fundamentalist now. And they want to go do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or they might say, hey, yeah, I got my feet under me and I'm feeling like I want to go join the AUB.
Right.
That's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the beauty that I saw, right? Because I felt like when you first approached me with this, I was like, we don't need another church, right? That is something we do not need, right?
Right.
The other, and so the way it acts as a bridge to wherever people are
Wherever
supposed
you're
to be,
supposed to be. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that enthralled me the most about it, right? Is that there is no agenda here. The agenda is about serving the people that come in so that they are empowered and responsible enough to make the decision about where it is they need to be. The LDS Church, the Nielsen Nailers, the AUB, an independent, go down the list.
Right. So this is open. This isn't just for the conservatives in the LDS Church that are finding things untenable too. This is for, on social media, I see this. I see these people that are labeled PMO, or they even self-identify PMO, physically and mentally out, and they get all manner of ridicule and flack because they're going through a hard experience, reevaluating their faith. I feel empathy and sympathy towards that. I've been
Right.
there. And I don't think that this is just a bad egg trying to destroy other people's faith. I see these are people that are hurt. They're legitimately hurt. They've got legitimate questions. And I don't know that we've got all the answers for everybody, but I think we might have some. And those people deserve to be able to learn the things that they need to learn so they can make decisions on their faith. If they don't want to throw out the Book of Mormon, they don't want to throw out Joseph Smith. If they don't want to throw out Mormonism, you don't have to throw out Mormonism.
Right. Absolutely.
But most places you go, it's that's sort of the highway, and there's no place to figure stuff out. There's no opportunity to hear the arguments. And so even within this organization, we've got people coming into this who are going to be assisting in this that have different ideas.
And that's good.
That's a good thing. And we can respect people having different ideas.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so let me ask you this. With that, where it's how does someone still stay active, right? What because how are we going to avoid conflict between someone who wants to go to church on Sunday but yet attend a sacrament meeting on Zoom with the ministry?
Right. So one of the other auxiliary organizations, right, is basically going to be a bishopric.
Right.
And the idea there is to assist in having sacrament meetings and as much as possible to be able to provide for temporal support for people
Right.
as much as possible, right? Again, we're organized in a way that we can accept tithing money, and we intend to be completely open about that. There's no hiding money.
Right.
We're going to be very clear about where that goes. And if people feel inspired to pay tithing into that, that's okay. And if you're not, that's okay.
Yep.
But for those that do, if there are funds available, we want to be able to provide temporal support to people as well.
Okay.
At least get to a point where we can, right?
Okay.
So we're going to look at doing our sacrament meeting on Saturdays.
Okay. So that way there's no conflict on Sundays.
So that way people that are involved in other organizations and Sunday is they've got other commitments, that's okay. We're going to try to be as accommodating as possible. And ultimately, when it comes down to even sacrament meeting, we want to organize something for people that want to be a part of that, right?
Right.
Ultimately, though, if you have Melchizedek priesthood,
Do that yourself.
you can do that yourself. There's nothing you can just do things. I know the church says you can't, but but you can just do things with certain priesthood.
And look, there's a lot of folks that don't know how to do that anymore, right?
Yeah.
At home, have a lesson at home with your family. And that was the other thing I really dug about this was this idea that we'll teach you.
Yeah.
We'll teach you. We've been doing it for a lot of years, right? Not you and I specifically, but
No,
fundamentalists in general, right?
Yeah.
Been doing it for a long time. They'll show you how it runs, right? And give you some pointers. And then it's up to you to make it fit, right? You can make it look however you want. But and so the rest so are all those meetings going to be on Sunday or are they going to be spread out?
Not entirely sure yet.
Okay.
We're still working out the nuts and bolts, but we do intend to try to keep meetings off of Sunday.
Okay.
So Sunday school might not be on Saturday, right after
Right.
sacrament call, but it'll be something that can be more accommodating for people.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
that if your Sunday is booked, that's all right.
So meetings throughout the week.
Yeah.
Which look, doing a podcast now, going to church on Sunday, activities on Saturday, I love it. Right? Because
Yeah.
I'm not cramming a week's worth of church into a 2 or 3 hour block, right?
Yep.
That's spread out. I think that's the way Mormonism was supposed to be lived in the beginning anyway. It's not just a Sunday thing. This is throughout your week kind of a thing,
Yeah.
and throughout your life kind of a thing.
Yeah. You know, and I guess so the fifth organization is a missionary organization.
Right.
And we're going to try to do some fundamentalist missionary work.
Nice.
And that's kind of new.
It's
It's kind
very
of
new.
new. We got some great guys involved though, and I think we're going to be able to figure that kind of stuff out as well. But with that missionary effort, we're not trying to, there's no agenda here to tear down anybody's existing faith or beliefs,
Right.
including LDS. I mean, I've got my own issues with the LDS Church. You've got your issues. We're not going to try to tear down. We're not looking to bring everybody over.
Right.
The idea, if the LDS Church is working for you right now and you feel good about that, then you should stay there. I honestly believe that.
Right.
But if it's not working for you anymore, that's what this is for.
100%. 100%. Okay. So we got a good idea of what the structure looks like. It's essentially 5 organizations: a women's organization, a priesthood organization, um, kind of a bishopric, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
a a missionary program, and then a teaching program, a Sunday school kind of program. Okay. There's one guy in particular I can think of we probably shouldn't name. We just talked to him the other day. I'm not sure if he's ready for that yet.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about who else we got involved here, because I think that's super important in showing that this is truly across group lines, right? We're not going rogue here. We are simply trying to work with others to do a bigger work.
Right. And bring in the best of the best to assist us in that
Right.
work.
So let's talk. We're gonna skip the priesthood organization for now. That will be announced later. Not terribly later, like next week, maybe, kind of a thing.
Right.
Okay. So with that, who is going to be heading up the 70s group, the missionary group?
Well, we're looking at having Jeff Aldridge.
Right. And
So
you've talked to him and he is on board. Okay, so Jeff Aldridge will be there. He's been on the podcast before. He is not bashful. Good dude. Love that guy.
yeah.
He's been on Seeking Sister Wives. Good dude.
Right.
Tremendously good dude. Okay, what about you were talking about kind of a bishopric organization. Who's
Yep.
going to head that one up?
We're looking to have Joshua Erickson head that up.
Okay, so Joshua Erickson. And if you've listened to the podcast at all, Joshua's been on here a few times. Again, good man. Love him, love his family. Great people. Okay, what about the teaching organization?
We have a guy named Elior.
Been on the podcast a couple times.
Yeah.
Go getter.
Very much a go-getter.
Stay tuned. He's got some stuff coming up that's really good. Go check out the Deseret Dagger.
Yep.
Satirical stuff right up my alley. So okay. And then who's heading up the women's organization?
Moroni Jessup's wife, Martha.
Okay. Or Lady A, as he likes to call her on TikTok. So okay. So she'll head it up. So yeah, these are all pretty heavy hitters in the world of fundamentalism. They're not bashful people.
From all different stripes
Yeah.
and types. Too.
Again, you got folks from the Nielsen Nailers from out here in at the Missouri group out here, from Independence and Joshua Erickson and Jeff Aldridge. So yeah, we've got a good group that has come together to perform this heavy lift, and it is a heavy lift, but
Very heavy.
but I think they're the horses to get it done, so to speak.
Right.
Okay, so that takes care of that structure. Takes care of who's going to be heading those things up. Now I want to move on to some more kind of the doctrinal stuff.
Right.
Because I think I think that's the next question, right? That people are going to have is, okay, well, how are you guys the same as the LDS Church, and how are you different?
Hmm.
So I think these are, and this was a collaborative effort across several different people from several different groups, but I think it hits just right. Excuse me. So the first 13, is that right? 13 or 14?
13.
The first 13 articles of faith are absolutely right there. But then there were some other ones that I think give some greater context for what this is about. And I'm going to let Justin read them off there, and then we'll talk about them for just a moment.
Yeah. So the idea here, the original Articles of Faith, were a response to people wondering, so what are these Mormons? What is this Church of Jesus
Right.
Latter-day Saints? When Joseph Smith was just getting going,
Right.
and he didn't want to put together a creed,
Right.
but he wanted to come up with something to communicate the core doctrine and beliefs
Right.
of the Restoration. Now, when this was originally given, we were in the midst of the Restoration still. And by the time all of this lands, we've got Brigham Young and has basically founded his own country.
Yeah. Yep. People forget he didn't just leave Missouri. He left the United States.
Yep. And there wasn't, I think, as much of a need to re-clarify
Right.
where the Restoration ended up, where it finished at.
Right.
So Joseph Smith, before his death, was exalting that he had rolled it off. He did what needed to be done.
Right.
That whether he lives or dies, this can move forward.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And we know we lost him.
Right.
And Brigham Young took up that torch. And he's busy founding his own country and all that stuff.
Just trying to keep people alive.
Trying to keep people alive. And what came to me was this idea of putting together some additional articles of faith
Okay.
to communicate the doctrines
Gotcha.
of the Restoration, where it landed, to fill it out. And I'm not saying this is exactly what Joseph Smith would have come up with, or Brigham Young would have come up with. But if they had set themselves to the task, I think they would have ended up something very, very similar.
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea here. So we've got, starting here in Article 14.
14. Yeah.
All right. We believe that Adam and Eve are the heavenly parents of our spirits, who condescended from their celestial thrones and glory to provide mortal bodies for us, their children. We also believe that after Adam and Eve completed their mission as the progenitors of the human race, they returned to their celestial glory to govern the affairs of their children in creation.
Okay. So let me ask this question then, because there's going to be a lot, that don't believe in the Adam God doctrine.
Right.
So does that mean that they are automatically excluded because they maybe don't believe in that one tenet there?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. In fact, even if you've lost some of the first 13, if that's where you're at, that's okay too.
Okay.
But this is, as far as this organization, we're going to set forth our standards.
Okay.
Right. This is what we believe as fundamentalists. This is what I personally have a testimony of. This is what
this group
this group stands.
This eclectic group of individuals have come to.
This is what we believe.
Yep.
This is what we believe as Mormons. If you've got issues with that, that's okay. You don't have to agree with that. But that is, I want to be clear, because what we don't want is to create a ministry that doesn't stand for anything.
Right.
And can be directed by whoever just happens to be charismatic enough to, So these are basically, the foundational doctrines.
Okay.
But if you don't have a testimony of them yet, that's okay too.
Yep, absolutely. And if you never come to that testimony.
And if you never come to it, that's okay too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not my job to police what anybody else believes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So Adam God doctrine. Got it.
Right. But that is what Brigham Young revealed.
Absolutely.
And Brigham Young, this wasn't Brigham Young's opinion.
Right. No, and look, Brigham gets the opportunity to again found his own country,
Yeah.
right, where he doesn't have to worry about mobsters killing everybody because he's going to spout some deep doctrine that's going to irritate some people.
Right.
So, okay,
Yep.
Adam God doctrine.
Exactly.
We got that.
Yep. Article 15 says, "We believe that our eternal Father and Heavenly Mother were once mortals as we are now, and lived on a different earth, and that through the atonement of their Savior, as well as making and living up to eternal covenants, they qualified themselves for the blessings of exaltation and godhood."
Perfect. I
Right?
I
And that
feel
one's not even Brigham, right?
no,
That goes
yeah.
back to Joseph Smith,
That's
King
King
Follett.
Follett.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
And this last one kind of goes in line with this as well. We believe that as the literal descendants of God, we have the same opportunity to participate in the same eternal pattern, to
Okay.
become joint heirs with our Savior, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and receive the same blessings of exaltation and eternal lives.
Okay. Again, pretty straightforward,
Pretty
right?
straightforward. Right.
That one I don't think is really that much different than what almost all Mormons believe.
Right. And well, if you have faith in the temple ceiling, that is what is promised.
Yep.
Um, and again, not necessarily just because you were sealed, but that is the opportunity through a
Right.
sealing that God grants us through that ordinance.
Right. Perfect. Okay.
So that's kind of the Adam God type
Okay.
articles right there. Next we have, let's see, 16. Yeah. We believe that, oh wait, I should 16, 17. We believe in the establishment and consecration of holy temples for the administration of sacred ordinances, wherein the opportunity and blessings of exaltation are made available to all who choose to qualify and receive them.
Perfect. This one was big, right? Because for the first time ever, almost all Mormons have access to a temple now,
Right.
if they so choose,
Yep.
right? And look, I've described it this way, and I truly believe this. What happened in Missouri with that temple was a watershed moment, not just for fundamentalism, but for Mormonism, period.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed not only the ability for people to get together and work well together, right? From what I understand, I want to make it clear I wasn't here for hardly any of the buildings. So, but from what I understand is they did it under a council, right?
Yeah.
Of elected men, and it got done. Which in Mormonism, that's crazy stuff.
It
Um,
it did get done. And I would say it even more than got done.
yeah,
Because, and this is again, you're allowed to believe whatever you are responsible for your own beliefs, right?
right.
We're not going to tell you one way or another. But the standard here is that for those who choose to qualify and receive them,
Yep.
there are some people in this organization that probably will have a belief in the priesthood ban.
Right.
That's okay.
Okay, so let's talk about that, how that works, right?
Right.
Because that on the surface would appear like something that would have to be split over or schism over it.
Well, that's generally what happens, right?
Right, right. Yeah,
That is the general MO. What we're looking at doing here, though, is you are responsible for your own beliefs. So if you have a sincere belief that that priesthood ban is God's law and that is God's standard, then we would not ask you to participate in ordinances that you aren't comfortable with participating or administering in.
so no
But we
one,
would ask those who feel that way to share the same respect with us.
right,
And so if the people that govern this temple are comfortable letting Black people receive their ordinances, if you have a problem with that, you're welcome to not participate
for that
for
session.
that session.
Right,
If you're not comfortable administering a priesthood ordination to somebody, that's okay. We would just ask the same respect in return. That for those of us that are comfortable performing those ordinances for people that we feel have qualified for them, and if we feel that that qualification isn't racial based, that you can respect that we're gonna perform those ordinances for those people, and we can respect that you feel like you shouldn't.
And the responsibility of that comes in the sense that you're going to answer for that on the other side,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And part of the other responsibility is okay, so you know what? I got a buddy, love him to death, but he's not on board with with removing the ban, and I get it, right? the
Yeah,
The history is messy,
it is
right?
messy.
I understand. I don't blame anyone for getting to where they are on that. The general rule of thumb is we're not going to ask anyone to do anything they're not comfortable with.
Yep.
And then the other thing is that likewise, nobody's going to try to stand in the way of someone who feels the other direction administering those blessings.
Exactly.
A live and let live kind of approach.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll all be responsible ultimately.
Yeah, we're all going to
God's
answer for
gonna
what we
we're
do.
gonna answer to God in the end. And so if administering that to black people turns out that was a mistake, well, that's on me if I
Right.
choose to administer those ordinances to people.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
not upon you if you felt like you shouldn't and you choose not to participate.
Absolutely. Okay. No, pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So 18 is we believe that the eternal and unchanging requirements of salvation and exaltation will always be founded upon the same principles, laws, and covenants which are fulfilled in the administration of the restored ordinances, and that the covenants, principles, and administration of these ordinances are not to be denied or altered. Otherwise, the keys of the priesthood will become a cursing rather than a blessing.
Mm-hmm. In the old days, they used to say those keys would be turned against you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that one, if I'm not mistaken, basically has to say with no changing of the ordinances.
We're not changing the ordinances.
Right.
We don't believe in changing the ordinances.
Yep. And let's also be clear here too that this organization isn't going to be handing out temple recommends.
No.
Right?
No.
We're just going to put you in touch with the people that do make those decisions.
Right.
And it's up to you to go track those down. We're not going to be the judge of your worthiness one way or another on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. But I think that there's if we understand going back to the nature of God, right? How can we have faith in a God that will give a certain requirement for one for exaltation and a different requirement for another
You
for
can't.
exaltation?
He's a respecter of persons at that point.
That's not, yeah, there's an inherent injustice in that. If
Yep.
the standards are different, and we don't believe that.
Right.
Now, the beautiful thing about Mormonism is that there is a place in heaven for all of God's children.
Mm-hmm.
There is no eternal damnation for anybody that doesn't choose,
Right.
specifically choose. If you want nothing to do with God your Father, God's got a place for that even.
Yep.
But otherwise, for the majority of us all, God's got a place for us.
Yep. 100%.
And so if you want to step up and receive all that God has to offer, those conditions don't change. But
Perfect.
through work through the dead, through temples, right? These things become available to all mankind.
Absolutely.
So next is 19. We believe that the fullness of the priesthood restored by Joseph Smith, along with all of its associated keys and authority, make it be conferred upon all men who are prepared and qualified to receive it by a holy anointing. This ordinance, called the second anointing, is administered to men one at a time by revelation and at the hands of others who have previously received it. And it is the highest and holiest ordinance administered by men on this earth.
Okay. So this one gets a little dicey, right?
Yeah.
Because when I look at that particular ordinance, it should not be handed out willy-nilly, right?
No. Well, it within the ordinance itself is a organization that puts that responsibility upon those who receive it to receive revelation
Right.
on those that they administer it to.
And so I don't think you're calling for just passing that out.
No, not at all.
Okay.
However, this ordinance has been preserved.
Mm-hmm.
It's even been preserved outside of the LDS Church.
Yep.
And it's important to understand that, again, while to a certain degree I'm winging it here, I haven't received some divine angel telling me organize this organization, do this. I don't have that, right? But this organization does have priesthood.
Right.
It does have the priesthood to organize this way. It has priesthood to perform these temple ordinances, and that this priesthood is one that has been preserved in fundamentalism,
Absolutely.
and it is also being brought forth in this ministry, not as we're handing out second anointing ordinances willy-nilly, but that this organization is being administered with the proper priesthood authority to be able to do the things
I
that we
gotcha.
are doing.
Okay.
So if you need to be sealed, if you want to be sealed to your wife, if you want to be sealed to an additional wife, that priesthood has been preserved and that it exists within this organization and that we will be able to perform ordinances for people, the temple, sealings, and make these authentic ordinances valid.
Gotcha.
Because otherwise, the problem is if you leave the LDS Church, well, who would your children want to be sealed to somebody? Do they need to go back into the LDS Church to
Right.
do that? There are organizations in fundamentalism that claim this authority that I absolutely have faith in. But a lot of these organizations require an allegiance to that organization to receive it.
Right.
If you want to be sealed to your wife in fundamentalism, there are some independent fundamentalists that have this priesthood that are willing to perform it. But by and large, you're going to need to end up in a group.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And that's not going to be a requirement here,
Gotcha.
right?
Gotcha. So yeah, you'll be able to encounter men who have that authority at the same time direct you where to go to make sure you can go there to get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that the ordinances are valid.
Gotcha. Nope, that makes sense.
Yep. So 22 is we believe that Joseph Smith restored and lived the principles of plural marriage as a fundamental and required component of the new and everlasting covenant of marriage, and as a condition that must be entered into to receive the highest glory of eternity, wherein multiple women are voluntarily married and sealed with a single man of their own free will and choice, thereby providing every woman with an opportunity to marry a godly man of her choosing and to become a mother in Zion.
So there's a couple things there. One, totally cool with plural marriage.
This organization is cool with plural marriage, yes.
Okay.
We are fundamental
Right.
after all.
Right.
It's the one thing we're known for.
It's kind of the one thing you almost have to have, right?
Yep.
I mean, like, that's, yeah, no, I get it. Okay.
But the wording here is very careful.
Well, I was just going to say, a man of her choosing.
Yes.
So explain to me what the thought process was behind that.
So there's been times in the Restoration, especially when Joseph Smith first introduced this, that men were called by revelation and women were called by revelation to enter into this principle. One of the things that we understand from the 1886 revelation, though, is that it's actually God's desires that we voluntarily
Right.
enter into the new and everlasting covenant of marriage. That it's not an assignment necessarily by a priesthood leader, but that you are individually responsible to figure out who your family is by revelation.
So placement marriage is off the table.
So placement marriage, yeah, that's off the table.
Okay.
Not even close, because again, we don't have, this organization does not have a one man
Gotcha.
to even go to.
Yep.
If you wanted placement marriage, we can't help you.
Right. Right. You have to go to somebody who has that authority, ask them to do it, have them pray about it and get the revelation that they need, that it's okay for them to perform that sealing.
Right.
And then it can get done.
Yeah. So again, it kind of goes back to individual responsibility.
Right. Absolutely.
But we definitely, I think it only leads to abuse.
Yes.
In where we're at now, when you have a priesthood control over marriage, because we all understand that as Mormons, this is a core tenet of our eternal families is a core tenet
Right.
of everything that we believe. And if you have to delegate the responsibility of figuring out those decisions to the priesthood, you're not, even if the priesthood has the right answer for you, you're missing out.
Yeah, I get it.
You're missing out. That should be between you, the Lord, your wife, and a potential other wife, right?
Gotcha.
And you should all be in harmony and unity with that.
Absolutely.
Now, the other tricky thing is here, and this is the doctrine, and this is a hard doctrine of fundamentalism, right? But Section 132, it's very clear. Teachings from even Joseph Smith, while he wasn't specifically talking about plural marriage openly, was laying forth the groundwork that because God is not a respecter of persons, that the requirements don't change. And if you want to receive the blessings of Abraham, you've got to do the works of Abraham.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. It's very often mischaracterized as an easy thing for men
Hmm.
because, oh, you get an extra wife. Hooray, hooray. Well, that's the one argument I've never quite understood against the anti-polygamy people because um, if you are a husband, if you're doing it right, it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
And multiplying that, I don't know. I don't have experience with that yet myself. But I don't think that's a walk in the park. There's easier ways
Yeah,
of debauchery than marrying extra women and providing for them and giving them children, raising their children, and trying to make a family like that work.
I am very blessed with my wives because both of them are absolute rock stars of individuals. Having said that, it's still work, right? It's still work. Um,
Imagine.
it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
But to do it right, I think it's going to be work,
Yeah.
right? But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah. So it's a sacrifice for men and women.
Right? Absolutely.
And I have a testimony that is a bedrock foundation of this faith.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't now I don't agree, and that's not in here, that you have to live this principle in your life to receive exaltation.
Okay.
Now, some people could choose to believe differently. And I know
Right.
there are fundamentalists that do choose to believe differently on that one as well.
I agree with you that having to live it here, probably not, but you should be good with it.
You should be good with it though, right?
You should get to a place.
It's not going to be, you're not going to go through life in monogamy in this life and then after this life suddenly be like, all right, I'm ready for plural marriage now.
Right. Right.
It's not going to be easier.
It is a core tenet, right? I mean, and look, these are one of those things where getting right with it, at least in my opinion, is that if the right woman came along and said, I'd like to join your family, you and your wife are at a place to where you could kneel down together in earnestness and
Mm,
pray for the revelation. If the revelation was positive, you would be willing to do that,
right.
right?
Yep.
And likewise, that a guy's not so fired up just to do it that he skips the revelation part altogether, right?
Yes.
And so
Well, I
there's got to
mean,
be a healthy tension here.
again, individual responsibility,
Yeah.
right? But that's true even in monogamy.
Yep.
That's true in even monogamy. And
Absolutely.
I believe even in monogamy, when you make covenants with a woman like that, you are now as a man, you are responsible.
Absolutely.
And you've got to take that responsibility wherever it may lead. And that might be a lot of working with your wife
Absolutely.
and to get to a place where you can be on the same page.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right.
Okay.
So 23, which is almost done.
No problem.
We believe that when women have made covenants with God and their husband, that they obtained the right and privilege of calling upon their husband's priesthood to administer to her family in times of need. We also believe that through the sacred ordinance of the second anointing, a woman has the privilege of being a vessel for the priesthood and can administer in the priesthood as directed by God.
This one is so timely. And let me explain why. Some of the emails I get are from men and women asking about women's role in the priesthood.
Right.
It's a big question in the church right now that the
Yeah.
church is wrestling with. And it goes to prove my point that not all the answers we need lay in front of us. Some of them are behind us,
Yeah.
right? And this is one of those. Um, it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that once a woman is endowed and married, she can call on her husband's priesthood to do things in his absence.
Historically, that's what
Right,
we have in the restoration.
right. And then when a woman receives the second anointing, she can officiate in the priesthood.
Yep.
That is revolutionary on so many levels. So many levels, right? And look, I want to go back to one of the first ones we talked about here because women in the priesthood and women in the gospel is so vitally important to get it right. It's so important it gets right. You can't be super feminist at the same time. You can't be a chauvinist either if you're a man,
No.
right? Joseph strikes a balance here through revelation that is beautiful. One of the questions, again, probably 3, 4 years ago, I remember listening to a general conference, and one of the big 15, I can't remember which one, got up and said, look, yes, we know that there is a heavenly mother. We just don't know a lot about her. My contention is if you went back to the Adam God doctrine, you know a heck of a lot more than you know right now,
Yeah,
right?
right.
She's got a voice in the scriptures,
Yes,
right?
she does. She plays an integral role.
Yes, yes. And likewise, this question of women in the priesthood, the answers to those questions are found in the original teachings if you're willing to have the courage to go look. And this is one place where I feel like fundamentalism at large can be a big time net positive to Mormonism as a whole, is in terms of women's relation to priesthood and deity.
Right. Now, you might say, well, isn't this just catering to feminists?
No, no, this is holding true to the doctrine.
So, when I was going to school, one of the things I studied was Karl Marx, right? And I'm reading and studying Karl Marx's critiques of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And what shocked me, because I'm very much a very strong conservative,
Free market kind of guy.
kind of free market kind of guy. I probably lean more conservative than libertarian, but this was a challenge because as I'm reading Marx and he describes the problems of capitalism, I'm looking around the world today and I'm like, hmm, maybe he was right on some of the problems of
Right,
capitalism. Now, I think his solutions were terrible, but I think he was absolutely right that capitalism is not a perfect system.
right.
And we can see these kinds of abuses even today. I mean, we were just talking earlier about a certain amount of gratitude. I don't trust Elon Musk as far as I can throw him, but him buying X, he kind of saved free speech on the internet.
He did, right? I mean, that's just
I
the
mean,
truth of it, right? Yeah.
it's just kind of how it is. And so I think that there is a real struggle that women have in the restored gospel in the church today as presented. There are some legitimate issues that aren't being addressed properly. Now, the feminist solutions, I believe, are incomplete and broken, and that if they got exactly what they wanted, they'd find that this isn't what they want.
Right.
Much like Betty Friedan talking about you empower women to have jobs and careers and all that. And I mean, I've got a job and a career, and man, I wish I could just spend my day with all my time with my children and uh a lot of women today are saying, hey, I think we got short sold a
Bad bill of goods.
bad bill of goods. This isn't really that empowering. It's just hard.
Right.
And then it creates other problems. Now, who's going to raise the children? Well, I guess we have to pass it off somewhere else. And
Abjugating responsibility.
abdicating responsibility, yeah.
Yep.
But when done properly, as revealed by Joseph Smith, as revealed by Brigham Young and John, as was lived in the early days of the gospel, women need this connection to the priesthood as well.
Yep.
And A feminist might say, well, it's not fair that they have to go through their husbands to get it. Well, so do the men. The scriptures say that man is not without the woman, or the woman without the man,
Right.
the Lord.
Right.
We have to come together as different sexes to fully embody this true divinity.
All of Mormonism's higher ordinances depend on a man and a woman getting married.
Yeah,
Period.
period.
Point blank. There's no getting around it. Look, one of the best things I ever saw. You remember that show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh, yeah.
That quiz show? There was a great one they did with celebrity athletes, right? And one of the guys on there was Steve Young. You know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Great, 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 whatever grandson to Brigham Young, Hall of Fame quarterback. Seems like the ultimate Boy Scout, right?
Yeah.
But um, the host asked him, said, I heard you're engaged to be married now, finally. He's like, yeah, I did. He's like, well, how'd you propose? And he said, sorry, this is just a side tangent. He said, well, we hiked up to the tallest peak in Utah that we could get to. And I got on one knee and I said, this is as high as a man can get on his own. Would you help me get the rest of the way? Now, it panned over to Charles Barkley, and he was holding his stomach laughing really hard. And he said, man, that's the widest stuff I ever heard. Um, but nonetheless, Steve Young was right. Right? We can't get to where we want to go as men without our wives. Likewise, women can't get to where they ultimately want to be in this gospel without their husbands. So we are mutually reliant and dependent upon the other to get to where we want to go in exaltation.
Right.
And what I find in early Mormonism is that there's a beautiful symbiosis or a beautiful balance between the sexes that's illuminated by Joseph Smith.
Right.
Or revealed by God through Joseph Smith is probably a better way of saying that.
Yeah.
And so
the higher you go, the closer you come together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I was really excited to kind of set the record straight on that part because I feel like it's been far neglected for far too long.
Right. There is a right way to empower women in Mormonism.
Yep.
And there is also a wrong way.
Yep. 100%.
But Joseph had it right.
Yep. 100%.
So this is our final one. And this one speaks to what we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay. So this is 24. We believe that our physical bodies are created male and female as distinct, incomplete, and complementary halves, which manifest on unchangeable and eternal identity that we all possessed before birth. And like any other temporal weakness common to mankind, gender dysphoria, homosexual attraction, and other distortions of our eternal identities are not sinful in and of themselves, but when acted upon, legitimized, or excused, they result in severe consequences of spiritual and temporal destruction to ourselves, our families, and society.
Okay. Break that down. What does that mean?
That means it is not a sin to have homosexual attraction.
Okay.
That means it isn't a sin if you are struggling with feeling like maybe I'm a woman and I'm a guy, or I'm a guy and
if you're experiencing gender dysphoria.
Yeah. Those things that's I don't struggle with those things, but I've got my own struggles. And I have to temper myself. I can't just go and mate with any woman that I find. There's a carnal desire that might be interested in that, right? But that needs to be tempered with the laws of God, because ultimately these laws are for our benefit.
Okay.
But there are consequences
to acting upon them.
Okay. And that is, I wish I could say it were otherwise. But everything we see in the world, this experiment into affirming and legitimizing these things has been destruction.
Right.
It has been insanity.
Yep.
We've got drag time story hour. We've got boys competing in girls' sports. We've got men hanging out in girls' bathrooms. There is a societal collapse happening because the family is that fundamental unit of society. And we have experimented with, well, maybe we can do this our own way.
Yeah, and that's proven disastrous.
It's proven disaster, and it is just as disastrous if I acted upon all of my desires as well. That it's not specifically that there's something wrong with people in that LGBT whatever community. Not any more wrong than the rest of us. But I in society today, well, maybe I would be, but I would expect that if I became a playboy and I started dating girls and having one night stands and things like that, that there would be an expectation that that's wrong. That's
Right.
bad. That's destructive. That's going to lead to
Disaster.
disaster. And it would be disaster just as much as this is disaster. This has been a disaster.
Right. So it's one of those things. Let me see if I can got my mind wrapped around this. Is if you struggle with those things, you're welcome.
Exactly.
But if you're acting upon them, then it's a different thing a little bit here.
Yeah. I would hope that you recognize that you need some help.
Right.
And we'd be willing to help as best as we can. Ultimately, though, again, individual responsibility
Right.
with my own struggles, with your own struggles. It's all between you and the Lord.
So we're not going to see pride flags in there.
No pride flags.
Not going to have a dude going to the women's meeting.
Nope.
Not going to have a woman coming to the men's meeting.
Right.
Okay.
We're also not going to platform Andrew Tate.
Right. Yep. I got you. I got you. Okay. No, that's pretty reasonable. I could see that. So that's all of them?
That's all of them.
Dude. Okay. So we've just went quite a ways. What time is it?
115.
Okay, so we're going on 3 hours. What in your mind, what are as this grows, how does growth get accommodated? Right? Because while the Zoom meetings are going on, that's great. But that's not ultimately how you want to have religious meetings constantly, right?
It's not ideal.
So what's the thought process there if this was to grow and catch fire and those sorts of things?
Right. Well, my plan is that we're going to see people coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and as they experience living the fullness of the gospel in these things, that they're going to be able to step up as well. And I'm hoping that some people who find benefit through this ministry will feel called to stick around
Okay.
and that this can grow. And I don't know exactly what the form might take, but ultimately it can't just be on me. It can't just be on Dave. And so as people come in, I hope to abdicate this position of having started this as soon as possible, right?
When Justin first asked if I'd be willing to help, I said, well, only if my position gets to be the token inactive guy. So
right. And unfortunately, we need Dave in other spots in this thing. So he does not get to be the token inactive guy yet. Yeah,
not
but
much.
we can dream.
It's my goal. My goal.
Too. It's my goal too.
My goal. That's what I want to do.
But
Okay.
we want this to be able to grow though. And so there's going to be opportunities to step up.
Ultimately, as we talked, one of the things that you hit on that I really liked was this idea of it's scalable, right? So let's say in Richfield, Utah, there's there's a guy out there who starts hanging out with us online, and then pretty soon he tells his friends, and their friends tell their friends. Well, all of a sudden he's got his own group right there,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's ultimately where we hope is that people step up and take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
And kind of bloom where they're planted.
Exactly.
Because look, while the folks in Missouri are great, we're all not going to fit in Missouri, right?
It's not yet.
Not yet. And so you're going to have to kind of bloom where you're planted, right? You're going to have to lift where you stand and be able to rally those who share your beliefs and get them on board with this. And likewise, this scales wherever you're at. It can scale up, it can scale down. Um, and there's people that will be there to help you along the way as that starts.
Yeah, and the organization can be here to support you as much as necessary. And if it's a point where somebody's like, "Hey, I think I've got this figured out," and I'm feeling called to, you know, organize their own version of this, their own branch of it, that's fine.
Perfect.
That's perfect. That's kind of the hope here is that
Absolutely.
everybody can figure out what they need to be doing. We're not
Gotcha.
going to end up with a Zion society with a nation of kings and priests and queens and priestesses under a system where you have to have an organizational permission to do anything.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
at the core level, we want to respect everybody's own individual inspirations, their own revelations, their own callings. And we're here to try to support that as much as people are willing to participate.
Awesome. Okay. So with that, how do people find this ministry now?
Right. So we have it, we're calling this Mormon Legacy Ministries. Our symbol is a handcart.
Okay.
And the idea is harkening back to that original legacy, that gift, that inheritance that is all of us as brothers and sisters who have come into some form of Mormonism or another, right? We were all essentially heirs of this restoration.
Gotcha.
And it's a callback to the old stuff,
Nice.
right? Those old values, those old principles, those old standards. And I mean, that's something I've got a huge thirst for,
Yep. Absolutely.
right? Men
Well,
and women taken, they had to do that.
yeah.
Now, even with Brigham Young, right? It's easy to look at Brigham Young and think, well, he was the prophet. You do what the prophet says. People lost their lives
Yeah.
on those handcart trails.
Absolutely.
They put everything in,
Yep.
and they were willing to do whatever it takes. They didn't do that because Brigham Young told them to.
Mm-mm.
They didn't do that because Joseph Smith told them to. They're doing that because they had their own conviction
They felt
that
it to their core.
this is the right thing to do. This is what they need to do, and they're willing to take responsibility for that.
Perfect.
And that's kind of
So Mormon Legacy Ministries.com.
.org.
.org.
So mormonlegacy.org or mormonlegacyministries.org.
I'll put both the links in the show notes here and people can find it.
And the idea here, the invitation is we will have a form to fill out. If you're already like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, I want to be involved in this, then we'll have a place where you can get in touch with us as
Yeah.
and get started right away. If you're just curious, you want to know more, we're gonna have another form to reach out, and we'll set you up with some of our missionaries
Absolutely.
and answer some questions and get that stuff sorted out. And if somebody's like, hey, I like the idea of doing sacrament with you guys, but that's it.
That's okay.
That's okay. If you're like, hey, I like the idea of the men's and women's organizations, but I want to do sacrament on my own, that's okay. Or you're doing sacrament in the LDS church. I mean, I think that's still valid, right?
Absolutely.
So the opportunity here is to participate, to take whatever is valuable, as much as valuable. And we want to be here to serve. We want to be here to help and help you just get set up,
Absolutely.
get back to living the restoration. Because this was the biggest thing for me. The biggest thing for me was as I'm in that deconstructed place, I'm finding these old books and I'm finding these old doctrines, and they were beautiful to me. The Adam God doctrine changed my relationship with my Heavenly Father
Mm-hmm.
in a meaningful, impactful way. And on the one hand, you've got, what Denver Snuffer was selling, which to me felt very dark because it was saying that the restoration failed.
Mm.
Joseph didn't pull it off, and Brigham completely side railed it, and the restoration's been lost. And that was really dark. That was the thing that really disturbed me the most about it. And then I find some of Ogden Kraut's books and stuff, and I'm reading about the old doctrines, this old history, these things I had no idea about,
Right.
having been raised in the LDS Church, and these were beautiful things to me.
Yeah.
Some of them were kind of hard to wrap my head around,
Sure.
but when I got there, it was better.
Absolutely.
It was a better Mormonism. I'm reading about things like couples doing prayer circles in their own home. That was a thing. That was a thing. Families had altars in their homes, and and couples who'd been endowed could do their own prayer circles.
Yeah. Dude, that was a thing clear up to the 70s, right? Like it hasn't been that long.
Right.
That shows you how new some of these changes really are.
But that has been a beautiful blessing in my family.
Absolutely.
And I can't imagine now living without it. And
Yep.
so there's some good stuff to be had, fundamentalism. And even if you don't end up landing in fundamentalism, if it can help you regain your testimony of the restoration and figure out where you're supposed to be,
Praise God.
praise God. That's all we're trying to do. That's my agenda, is to
Yep.
help people
Rekindle the fire.
rekindle that fire and to be a part of something that they feel like represents their values.
Absolutely. Well, dude, that was epic. It's gonna get fun now.
Yeah.
On to doing stuff. Is there anything that we were remiss in talking about you want to cover before we wrap this up?
I think we about covered it. I mean, I imagine there's gonna be a lot of questions and
Yeah, there will be as it goes along here. So one thing I want to wrap up with is this. From here on out, with the permission of whoever emails me, I want to turn those right over to that missionary group. Because quite frankly, I've done a poor job in being able to answer everybody's email as quickly as I'd like.
if people are willing, right?
Yeah, if people are willing, I would like to pass those along, and you can just put in your email, can pass along or whatever, just so I know. But also, there are people in Europe that are now emailing me.
Okay.
And so this is one of the reasons I'm so excited about this. Are these reasons, right? We can reach people that we normally would not be able to reach in a ministering kind of way because of distance and separation. That is gone. That is off the table. Next, this is, and I can't stress this enough, this is not a church not looking to supplant any other group, any other religious organization. This is a bridge to get people to where they're supposed to go, whether that's the LDS Church, whether that is the AUB, the Nielsen Nailers, the Missouri group, whatever it is. We just want to see you wherever it is God wants you to be. So there's no agendas here about where you're going to end up. And then two, we're not standing in the way of those ordinances, and we're not saying yes or no. We'll just point you in the right direction to go find somebody if you need ordinances. And I'm super excited about this. One last thing before I wrap this up totally is I posted this earlier this week, but go check out, and I'll post the link in this episode show notes as well. Ammon Jeffs could use our help a lot. Him and his family are up against it right now, and they're trying to get some money because, quite frankly, the diagnosis his little girl's got, it's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of money to get it done. So if you were at all capable, jump on that GoFundMe link. I'll put in the show notes here. Donate, help him get to where he needs to be. Can't tell you how much I'm impressed with him to be able to come out of what he came out of, hold his testimony intact, and by all accounts, walking it like he talks it. And he could just use our help, and we should be here for that. Justin, dude, it was awesome. All right.
Here we go.
Here we go. All right. Bye, everybody.